Welcome to r/relationships, where Karen has a blackmail folder on her computer. My girlfriend has a blackmail folder on her computer. She has one on me too. What should my next move be? So I've been dating my girlfriend for about 6 months. We're both 26, and honestly, things have been pretty smooth overall. We've had no major arguments or drama, which has been great. We do have opposite personalities though. I'm super laid back, and I try to go with the flow, while she's more of a type A personality. She's the kind of person who loves being in control of every situation. She's a decision maker, no question about it. Even with small stuff like picking where to eat, she'll make sure it's her call. She comes from a wealthy family and works for their corporation, which she says has made her mindset pretty intense. She's told me before that working there has changed her whole perspective because she constantly feels like she has to prove herself. I get that, and it sounds like a lot of pressure. I've honestly admired her drive and focus. It hasn't been a problem for me. At least it wasn't until recently. So here's where things get weird. She has this laptop that she's super protective of. I mean, she doesn't even let me touch it, which I always thought was a little odd, but I didn't think too much about it. She treats it like it holds national secrets or something. The other night, she got up to go to the bathroom, and for some reason, she left it open. Normally, she's very careful about closing it, but this time she didn't, and curiosity got the best of me. I know it was wrong to snoop, but I couldn't resist. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just felt like there was something on there she didn't want me to see. I wish I hadn't looked, because what I found freaked me out. She had this folder labeled Blackmail with subfolders for different people. I know I shouldn't have opened it, but I did, and now I can't unsee what I saw. There was a folder on her uncle, who's apparently married, with screenshots of texts where he was flirting with other guys. Another folder had dirt on some guy she knows who's cheating on his wife. There were even screenshots of her friends' old tweets that could probably get them canceled if they ever came out. What really got me was a folder with initials that I thought might have been mine. I couldn't open it because I ran out of time. She came back from the bathroom and I had to close everything in a hurry. I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. Now I can't stop thinking about it. I haven't done anything wrong that I know of, but what if she's been secretly collecting stuff on me? Like, what if she has pictures or recordings of me that I don't know about? The thought alone makes me feel sick. It's not like I have some deep, dark secret, but nobody wants to feel like their partner might be spying on them. I don't know what to do. She's been nothing but great to me, but this whole blackmail folder thing is really throwing me off in a major way. I feel paranoid now, like I have to watch what I say or do around her. It's making me rethink everything. Am I overreacting, or is this as messed up as it feels? I'm not even sure how to bring it up without exposing the fact that I snooped, which I know is already a big red flag on my part. I feel stuck. Break up with her. She seems like a vengeful person and readily armed to destroy whoever betrays her. Just tell her in these 6 months you really enjoyed the time you spent together, but you realized you're entirely different people. You respect and admire her work ethic, but you're not so organized about every single detail. You're carefree, chill, laid back, and prefer a lifestyle and partner who can match your personality. That you both have opposite personalities, and in the long run, you don't see this truly working out. Basically, tell her something she can believe, lie if you have to, and run. Don't even bother deleting that folder or bringing it up. Leave as amicably as you can. Do not upset her. She's vindictive. She prefers to ruin someone's life. This is not wife material unless you're in the mafia. Do not break up until you delete that folder and the restore points in Windows. I can see her flipping on him. It's risky. She'll notice if it's gone. She might have a backup. She might have hired a private investigator on him too. Who knows? If she seems sensible, he can have an honest conversation with her. I'm also curious if this is purely a business mindset passed down from her parents. Her wrath I wouldn't personally want to unleash. I imagine someone willing to blackmail me also can have it out for my friends and family too. Don't poke the bear. I used to be friends with someone like this. She ruined my life on a whim. It's been years since we last spoke, and I still have yet to recover from all the damage she's done, socially or mentally. The last thing anyone needs in their lives is someone who thinks this sort of behavior is okay. Today I messed up by microwaving my girlfriend's leftover rice. So this all started Saturday night. My girlfriend and I went out to grab some Korean food. We got beef, rice, and a few other dishes, and when we were done, we packed up the leftovers. Pretty chill night overall. After she left, I got hungry again and polished off the rest of the beef and my portion of the rice. Since we had 2 containers of rice, I figured there was still some left for later. I went to bed thinking everything was good. The next morning, I went grocery shopping and decided to prep some snacks for the week. I shredded an entire pound of Monterey Jack cheese because I had plans to make queso dip. I used some of it right away and stored the rest in one of my big Tupperware containers. I always keep my leftovers in those, so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Later that day, my girlfriend came over and we were just hanging out when she mentioned she was craving the leftover rice and sauce from her dish. I told her no problem. I was sure we still had some rice left, and I went to the fridge to grab it. Sure enough, I saw a big Tupperware container filled with white stuff. The kitchen was a little dim since only the stove light was on, but it looked like rice to me. I didn't think twice about it. I even remember thinking, wow, this is more rice than I thought we had. I started scooping some into a bowl while also trying to scrape out the last bits of sauce from her container. The rice felt a bit clumpy, but it was sticky rice, so I didn't think anything was weird. I put the bowl in the microwave for a minute and a half, figuring it would warm up nicely. When the microwave beeped, I opened it to find a disaster. The rice was a melted, burnt mess completely stuck to the bottom of the bowl. I was so confused. My first thought was that my new microwave must be ridiculously powerful. Honestly, I was more upset about ruining the sauce because that was basically all we had left of her dish. Determined to fix it, I scraped the last bits of sauce into the giant Tupperware and decided to heat up another batch. This time, I thought I'd be smart and microwave it for just 30 seconds. There's no way you can burn something in 30 seconds, right? Wrong. 30 seconds later, I pulled the bowl out and found a flat, melted pancake of what I thought was rice. At this point, I was mad and completely embarrassed. I turned to my girlfriend and said, "Yeah, babe, I don't know what's wrong with this rice, but it keeps burning." She just stared at me confused and said, "Huh?" I explained how the rice was all clumpy and melting in the microwave. She walked over, looked at the bowl, and then looked at me and said, that's cheese." I froze. What? Did they put cheese in your rice or something? I was grasping at straws because my brain just couldn't process what was happening. She started laughing so hard she could barely get the words out. "No, it's cheese. Like, just cheese." It took me a full minute before the light bulb went off. I had microwaved an entire pound of shredded Monterey Jack cheese, thinking it was rice. I stood there in stunned silence while she absolutely lost it. I felt like the dumbest person on earth. And the cherry on top, there was no rice. I ate all of it the night before and completely forgot. There was never a second container of leftovers, just my sad Tupperware full of cheese. So now I'm questioning my sanity. I've been cooking for years. I was sober. I wasn't distracted. I don't even know how this happened. My girlfriend still hasn't stopped teasing me about it, and honestly, I deserve it. But yeah, that's my story. I microwaved a pound of cheese thinking it was rice, and I'll probably never live it down. Our neighbors told us we can't sled ride on community property. My son, who's 4, and I decided to go sledding on this little hill in our neighborhood. It's in a small wooded area, kind of behind a house in the community, but it's not their property. The hill isn't big or steep, it's just enough to be fun for a little kid. When you sled down, you stop at the sidewalk, nowhere near the road. We'd only been out there for maybe 5 minutes having a blast when things got weird. The husband from the house nearby came outside and told us we couldn't sled there. He said it wasn't safe because it was too close to the road. I explained that we weren't on their property and that I was there with my son to make sure everything was safe. He insisted it was still dangerous, but honestly, the sled wasn't even going that fast. I mean, it's not like this was some Olympic bobsled hill. My kid was stopping right on the sidewalk every single time, nowhere near the actual street. While I'm trying to calmly explain this, the wife storms out of the house, yelling like we're about to cause a national disaster. She starts saying my son almost went into the road. He didn't though. He stopped on the sidewalk like always. I told her the same thing I told the husband, that this wasn't their property and I'm his mom, so I'm the one responsible for his safety. She just kept yelling about how dangerous it was and how I wasn't taking her concern seriously. It was clear they weren't going to let it go. My son was getting upset from all the yelling, so I decided it wasn't worth the drama. We packed up and left. I figured that would be the end of it, but nope. Today I drove by that hill and these neighbors had dragged out a bunch of trash and random junk to block it off. There were small bins, a trash bag, a shopping bag, and other random stuff just scattered across the hill. It wasn't on their property either. They had dumped it all on the common area where we had been sledding. It's so ridiculous and petty, and now it looks awful. A whole bunch of trash just sitting there. Who even thinks that's a good idea? At this point, I was annoyed, but also curious if I was somehow in the wrong. So I called up the HOA to double check that the hill was on common property. They confirmed it wasn't private property and that anyone in the neighborhood could use it. I explained what happened, how we were sledding, the neighbors told us to stop, and we left. The HOA didn't have any issue with us sledding there, but said they issued a violation to the neighbors for dumping trash on common property. That was a small win at least. One more thing to clear up, This hill isn't some massive slope of doom, it's tiny. My son loves it because it's perfect for him, but no older kid would even bother with it. I was standing at the bottom every single time, making sure I stopped him before he even got close to the road. Some people seem to think this was a huge hill that could send him flying into traffic. That's just not the case. Anyway, I'd love to hear what others think about this whole mess. Was I out of line, or are my neighbors just unhinged? Move the garbage to their property and sled away. They're miserable watching kids have fun. The thought of kids having fun in the snow fills them with dread and anxiety. Of course, they would never call it jealousy, just merely concern. Heaven forbid, more kids might decide sledding looks like fun and join them. Am I the jerk for not getting real food and causing my friend's husband to sell his stuff? I'm 20 and my friend is 24 male, and I don't know my friend's husband's exact age. For context, we all live together because I had to get out of a toxic family situation. My friend is helping me figure out how to take care of myself and realize that not everything is my fault. Recently, things have been tight. We're running low on food, and on Friday, friend's husband started complaining about how there wasn't enough to eat except mac and cheese and potatoes. My friend called him out, reminding him that he's only been buying food for his work lunches and mooching off what their dad brings into the house. That stuff isn't even meant for him. Friend's husband started whining that he doesn't make enough to buy food. For the record, he makes around $400 a week. I suggested we check out the food bank since it's open every second Tuesday of the month, but he refused and said he didn't want to eat that kind of food. My friend and I brought up food stamps, but friend's husband wasn't having it. He immediately shut down the idea, even though my friend can't file for them without him, and I don't know the first thing about applying. After that, I just gave up trying to reason with him. Instead, I used my entire paycheck to stock up on groceries. I wasn't supposed to spend all my money, but I couldn't stand the idea of us not having enough food. I even bought cheaper dog food so I could stretch my budget further. My friend's dad helped me bring everything home. I managed to get a good amount of food and drinks, enough to last us for a while. When friend's husband saw the groceries though, he lost it. He started complaining about how I didn't buy any real food. Now here's the thing. I'm mostly vegetarian because meat makes me feel sick, and my friend has texture issues with food. I bought what I knew we could eat and didn't bother with meat because it was ridiculously expensive. I tried explaining this to friend's husband, but he blew up at me, calling me selfish and saying I should have bought meat anyway and just cut out some of the other stuff I got. He didn't want to hear it when I pointed out that meat would have destroyed my budget, leaving me unable to feed everyone. I only had $250 to cover 2 weeks of groceries, plus food for the dogs. Originally, I planned to spend $100 on groceries and $70 on the dogs so I could save the rest. But with everything going on, I ended up spending the whole $250. I did what I could with what I had. Friend's husband then sold 2 of his gaming consoles to buy himself meat and more food. Now he's stomping around the house, sulking about how little he could get and how he only has 1 console left. I actually feel kind of bad that he had to sell his stuff, but at the same time, I'm frustrated because he's acting like I'm the one who put him in this position. My friend is furious with him, telling him to be grateful for what we have, but my brain won't shut up. It keeps telling me I messed up again, and now I feel like a total jerk because of how he's acting. For the record, I don't care if people eat meat. I'm not against it. I just can't eat a lot of it myself without feeling sick, so I don't buy it. The issue isn't him eating meat. It's the way he threw a tantrum and made me feel like I did something wrong when I genuinely tried to do the best I could with what I had. And just to be clear, I'm not asking for money. I have a job that I'm happy with. I don't make a lot, but it's enough to pay my share of the bills, feed myself, and take care of the dogs. Speaking of the dogs, please stop telling me to get rid of them. One of them is my ESA, and I literally need her to function like a normal human being. She helps me manage my anxiety and paranoia. She lets me know when I'm spiraling, hearing things that aren't there, or when I'm about to have a full-blown anxiety attack. She's not going anywhere. Not the jerk. You generously bought food to share. It's not your responsibility to cater to your friend's husband's taste. If he wants to eat meat, he should do whatever he needs to do to make that happen. He's deliberately playing on your insecurities and hoping you'll give in and accommodate him. You should be angry rather than questioning yourself. He's a manipulative jerk. Save your money and get out of there ASAP. Karen demands I pay for her son to go to Disney. I, 28 female, and my husband, 30 male, do not have kids. We both have decent paying jobs and real estate. That said, we love to travel and many times also pay and invite our families to go with us. My brother, who's 26, got married and had my nephew, who's 4, with my middle school best friend, who's 28. Yes, he married my best friend and we're still best friends. They had my nephew and years later they divorced. To the point. My brother started dating his new girlfriend, we will call her Ashley. They've been together for around 9 months. They're not engaged or married. She has a son who's 5, we'll call him John. I've only met John a handful of times. He's a nice kid, but I don't really know him. I only know Ashley on a first-name basis in a way. We talk occasionally, but nothing in depth. I invited my ex-sister-in-law and my nephew to go to Disney this summer for 6 days. 2 days at Disney, 1 day at Universal. The remaining days would be chill/Orlando days. We're paying for them to go. I've always wanted to take my nephew to Disney since he was smaller. He loves Mickey. We didn't tell him in front of John or Ashley, but it made it back to Ashley that we're taking him. She confronts me at a family dinner on the side and tells me that she's upset we're not including her kid and that he should have been invited too. She said that he doesn't feel like he fits in or his family with us and that we're excluding him from Disney and it's making him cry. I was so shocked. We are easily paying $2,000 for my nephew and best friend to go. Tickets, airfare, lodging, and of course some toys. I blew up. I told her that I didn't even know her or her kid. They've only been around for a few months and he's not my nephew. I told her I didn't like the entitled mentality and to make it a point, I would make sure to exclude her from all future family gatherings. She left crying. My brother and parents are all upset with me that I'm excluding this kid and isolating them. I told them if they'd like to pay for them, I don't mind them tagging along, but they all said, "You have more means than us." They're not doing great financially, which is why I didn't ask them in the beginning. She made a huge Facebook post and everyone is siding with her. Did I go too far? Should I have offered to include them? Am I the jerk? She's not married to your brother, but still making demands? Wowza, that's entitlement on a new level. The only reason her son was crying over this is because she told him all about it. This is her fault. I hope your brother realizes what kind of person she is in time. Not the jerk. Hope you and your nephew and your best friend and ex-sister-in-law all have a wonderful time. Not the jerk. No one should assume someone is going to pay for their kid to go anywhere, much less an overnight trip. If he loves Disney, she can take him. If his feelings are hurt he's not going to Disney, then that's on her, especially since she apparently chose to share information on the trip with her kid. Everyone sucks here. I think the only part where you were the jerk is where you made it a point to tell her that you'll exclude her and her kids from future family gatherings. Why do you get to do that? You get to decide for the whole family if she's accepted or not? Did you ask the others for permission to run their relationships? You were very cruel. You could have just told her that the trip was planned before you even met her. Or you could have just told her that she was out of line for the entitled mentality, which I agree was a jerk move on her part, or some other kinder way of brushing her off. Kindness to new additions of the family is free. Everyone sucks here. There's no problem with only taking your nephew. Your money, your choice. It might be different if they were around long enough or if they were married, but that's not what's going on here. Also, your family shouldn't be telling you what to do with your money. I do think you went too far in blowing up and planning to exclude this kid from all family gatherings in the future. Kind of feels like you were spoiling for a fight. You're the only one who ever cleans the house? Okay, we'll clean too. Context. My friends and I house shared with the worst people ever, a couple. They were loud, messy, gross, and they shouted all day and all night. They took priority over all communal spaces and made it seem like we weren't welcome in our own house. They also stole from us constantly. Here's the kicker. Despite all that, they were very strict on house rules. For us, obviously, not themselves. We would get screamed at if we made any noise whilst they were sleeping, but they could stomp around the house, shouting and going off, slamming all of the doors at 3 a.m. as much as they wanted to. Obviously, the house wasn't this clean, crisp haven of peace. It was an 8-person student house, so you can expect a bit of noise and mess. We tried explaining to them that if they can leave their dishes to rot and mold in the kitchen, we could maybe get a bit more slack with what we were allowed to do. If we left a cup next to the sink overnight, they would break it. They would try to paint this picture of us being these horrible, messy, and inconsiderate housemates. We were literally too scared to leave our rooms and lived off takeout for months so we didn't make any mess. We did everything, the cleaning of the whole house, the bins, cleaning up the mess, etc. As mentioned above, we stayed in our rooms and would go to each other's rooms and didn't cook in the kitchen or go downstairs for anything. So when we stopped cleaning the downstairs, we were never down there, so no mess was ours. It started to get messy from their own doing. Empty drink bottles everywhere, cushions thrown around, rubbish all over the floor. One of them decides to tidy their own mess before they both left for a few days. We were finally able to relax and chill downstairs. We didn't feel anxious anymore. We went out. They didn't let us leave the house without them. All brilliant and good until we get a text message. Can we make sure to keep the house tidy, as I've just cleaned all of the downstairs as it was too messy? The text changed something in me. I don't know if it was the acting like cleaning up your own mess is this amazing favor, or acting like it wasn't her and her boyfriend's mess she cleaned up, and us disgusting little rats would mess up her beautiful cleaning job instantly. So I decided to clean. I picked up everything in the living room and kitchen that belonged to them and put it in a nice big pile over their personal hob. When I say everything, I mean everything. Bits of their rubbish, their moldy mugs and plates that had insects on them. The man had a whole countertop dedicated to empty spice containers. I wasn't allowed my cup with my cutlery in it on the counter. When they found the pile, they asked me why I didn't throw out the rubbish. I said something along the lines of, "You said you cleaned these rooms, so I assumed you wanted to keep the moldy wrappers since they've been here for weeks." I honestly just wanted to show them that they also make messes too. A lot more than anyone else here. Also that her impeccable cleaning missed a few spots. My friends expected guests to pay for drinks at their party. This past weekend, my wife, who's 41, female, and I, 42, male, attended one of our friends' parties that I was invited to. For context, my friend, 42, male, and his girlfriend, who's 48, and their two friends, also mid-40s, were hosting this party, the four of them together. A few weeks ago, when I received the invitation, I realized that it said on it something along the lines of, "Please be prepared to purchase your own drinks." Didn't think much of it at the time, considering I just thought they were hiring a bartender or something. But fast forward to the day of the party. I arrive with my wife, and it's my friend and his girlfriend standing behind their kitchen counter that they were using as their bar, making and charging the guests for drinks. Now I was confused for a few reasons. 1. The fact that this party was held at my friend's house. It's not like this was at an event space or something where this would be normal in my opinion. And 2. There was no bartender that they hired or anything like that. It was literally 2 of the 4 of them standing in the kitchen at a time, making drinks for people, and then charging them all accordingly. Drinks were all under $10. Now, I don't know if this is actually a common thing, but I've never in my 42 years of living been to a party at a friend's house where the hosts are charging you for drinks. I've had multiple parties over the years that I've invited my friend and his girlfriend to, in which case they have attended, and I've never charged anyone for drinks ever. I've always bought all of the drinks myself and had an open bar type situation where my guests can make their own drinks, and I even had a proper bartender once, and still no one was charged. It was an open bar. I honestly felt like my friend, his girlfriend, and their friends were all trying to make a quick buck off of their guests who attended, clearly to cover the costs of the drinks. Which, yeah, I understand that booze isn't cheap these days, but we're talking splitting the costs of whatever they bought between 4 people. Like, in my opinion, if you can't afford to supply drinks at your own party, why are you having a party in the first place? This also wasn't for charity or anything. The money made off of the drinks was for them to split. My wife and I bought 1 drink each, stayed for about an hour or so, and said our goodbyes. When we were leaving, my friend asked why we didn't have that much to drink. I told him because I think it's ridiculous that they're charging their close friends for drinks. He called me cheap and an unsupportive friend. I assured him that I'm not. If the charging of drinks was for a good cause, like profits go to charity or something, of course I'd buy more. I told him I find the fact that they're charging for drinks and keeping the money for themselves ridiculous and taking advantage of their friends. Anyway, now my friend and his girlfriend are upset about this and have been calling me a jerk to our mutual friends. Am I the jerk? For any of those wondering, after reading the comments, my wife and I decided to exclude my friend and his girlfriend from any of our future parties. I blocked both of them as well. Not the jerk. That's tacky. I get bring your own beer, but this is a whole other level. I wouldn't have even gotten 1 drink. Not the jerk. That's just so weird. I could understand if it was in an event space or they had hired a bar and a bartender, but charging people for a drink in your own home is just weird. I would have left too. Normal friends. Hey, our budget's a little tight this month, but we still want to see everyone, so feel free to bring your own drinks. Your friends. Yeah, we're gonna charge you guys. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my guests the same breakfast I have? So I, 19 female, and my boyfriend, 22 male, live together. We don't have much money and we try to be as frugal as possible, but we each have specific things in which we decide to spend some extra money on. Mine is breakfast. I like having a good nutritious breakfast and it really does influence my mood. So I spend on buying myself high-protein yogurt, granola, fruits, nuts, and orange juice to have breakfast every day. My boyfriend doesn't care as much as me of breakfast and doesn't even like yogurt and orange juice that much, so I usually make him something else with whatever was cheap at the supermarket that week, and he never has a problem with it. I have a friend who's 18 who studies in the city 1 hour away and recently came to visit for the weekend. She was our guest as we invited her. Everything was fine until Saturday morning. I woke up early and had breakfast. She woke up a little later and asked what I was eating because it looked great. I said thanks. When my boyfriend woke up, I told them they could make pancakes with dulce de leche, chocolate milk or coffee or tea, omelet, oatmeal, or homemade bread with butter or dulce de leche. I thought that was a great amount of options, more than I normally have at home. I also had the morning free and didn't mind spending some time cooking, so I was willing to make half-elaborate breakfasts. She asked me if she could have what I was eating. I was caught off guard, but tried to explain in the nicest way possible that my breakfast is something I spend a little extra on myself because I really enjoy it and I can't really afford to feed everyone the same. She frowned and said something under her breath I don't remember now, but agreed to have whatever my boyfriend wanted. Everything felt awkward for a couple of hours, but eventually we put it behind us and enjoyed the rest of the weekend. She left yesterday, and today she sent me a paragraph saying not sharing something like breakfast is greedy, and it made her question if she wants to be friends with someone like that. I wanted to apologize, but my boyfriend said not to because she was acting entitled. Am I the jerk? Edit. I wasn't planning on eating in front of her. I just woke up early and thought she wouldn't wake up for at least an hour. I now know, however, I should have just not eaten that on that day. I understand and will apologize to her. However, I feel like people insulting me don't understand at all what being poor and having one thing to enjoy for yourself is. I try to share everything. I just have this one thing I really like, and I spend a good portion of my income on it. I didn't ask her for 1 penny for all of the meals I fed her the weekend, and I did have the budget to afford them. You're the jerk. I'm sorry, this food is too expensive to waste on you is a very rude message to give a house guest, especially a short-term guest that you invited. If you need help offsetting the cost of feeding her, if things are truly that tight, you make it clear when you give the invitation. But if you're buying luxury foods for yourself and a short-term housemate wants a normal amount of them during a meal where you're eating them, it's incredible that you felt comfortable saying no and then sitting there while you ate your VIP breakfast. OP should have just eaten what her boyfriend and guest were eating. It's totally fine having luxury items just for yourself, especially if you aren't rolling in cash, but don't eat them in front of guests. You're the jerk. Be a good host or don't be a host. You're the jerk. You invited her as your guest. Then you basically said she's not worth your good breakfast food. That was incredibly rude. I think it's a little over the top for her to text you about it later, but she's right that you were a really rude host. You're the jerk. Just very weird, rude behavior on your part. It's yogurt, not a prescription, and it's not like it was made of pure gold and cost thousands of dollars. You're not being asked to feed everyone every day, just your guest for 1 day. Not the jerk. I have no idea what everyone else is on about. You gave her a list of things she could eat, but not letting her have the one thing that's yours makes you the jerk? Also, since she's your friend, shouldn't she be understanding? Yeah, she's a guest, but she also didn't pay for the food. Well, what do you expect? You're on Reddit, the site where 99% of users feel entitled to things that don't belong to them. It's rare to find people on here who have an ounce of common sense. To get popular points around here, you have to constantly act like a victim and let people walk all over you. Have boundaries and stand your ground, and the people here will hate you. Unless you're setting ridiculous boundaries for your mother-in-law, they'll love you for that since they all despise morals, which mother-in-law is usually the only one who has any. Am I the jerk for refusing to lower the volume of my voice when I'm happy, even though it hurts my partner's ears? I am Latina, and he's from a country where people are more quiet. My husband has been irritable lately. I asked him what was going on, and he said that whenever I'm with my family and I get happy or excited, I get very loud and the noise hurts his ears and it makes him irritable, hence why he gets rude. I told him he was being unreasonable and he should suck it up. If he thinks the noise is too loud, he should leave the room. but not tell me to keep it down when I'm with my family and friends. I told him it's okay if he gives me a signal to keep the volume lower when I'm with his friends and family, but not when I'm with mine. My family and friends are the few spaces where I can safely and comfortably be my loud Latina self. He thinks I'm being a jerk for refusing to lower my voice when he's around with my friends and family, that it's not too much to ask because my loud voice hurts his ears. But for me, the volume of my voice is a pivotal part of my expression. I told him no, that he should suck it up or leave the room. Am I the jerk? Edit. Yes, I'm just loud when I'm with my family and friends, not when it's just him and I. I told him to tell me when I'm being loud on the phone at home. Edit 2. Most of my family are loud. I asked him about a particular aunt who is incredibly loud and famous in the family for being so. He said her loudness doesn't bug him or the rest, just my loudness. Edit 3. The loudness doesn't happen in our home. It happens in my parents' home or at my family members' homes. No one ever comes and visits, and he's not obligated to come to family gatherings. I told him he can leave the room, but he's embarrassed that my family will know that he's leaving the room because he doesn't like loudness. We've been together for 10 years, and yes, I was loud from the very start. I'm not loud when we fight. I'm the complete opposite. I'm quiet and calm. And for those who say being Latina has nothing to do with loudness, since I was a kid, I've been going to markets where there's tens of people asking the person for something. The only way to buy your stuff is getting louder and asking for it. It is a cultural thing. Soft, you're the jerk. I am also a Latina, but don't make it my personality to be loud. Marriage is all about compromise. Why should he have to cope with you being loud all the time? Why can't you lower your voice? It's fine if it's when you're with your family, but he shouldn't have to deal with it constantly when it's just you two. Reread the post. She's not loud all the time. She said it's only when she's with her friends and family. He's not dealing with it constantly when it's just them two. Okay, but we can teach kids the difference between inside voices and outside voices. Just because OP is happy doesn't mean she should be obnoxiously loud. You're the jerk. It's a small concession to avoid causing your partner physical pain. My husband gets loud when he's excited too. When I tell him he's too loud, he quiets down because it's basic respect. You're the jerk. I seriously cannot comprehend a situation where my husband would tell me that I was causing him physical pain because I like to shriek and talk too loudly, and my reaction would be, but I just like doing it that way. You're the jerk. Why can't you express yourself without shrieking and yelling? Only work the posted hours. Many years ago, I worked at a place with lots of arcade games and pizza, similar to Chuck E. Cheese. I was hired to do maintenance, repair, and set up of these arcade machines. There was already someone there doing this, but they were never allowed to work more than 40 hours a week, and the place was open 7 days a week, 9 hours a day, 63 hours a week, not including prep for opening and cleanup after closing. At the end of my first shift, I was told that I was also expected to help with cleanup since everyone that worked close had to help with cleanup. All my shifts were close shifts. This meant I had less time before my morning classes than I expected when taking the job, but a few extra bucks was valuable to a starving college student. Fast forward about 2 months. New manager, fresh out of high school, gets his big boy boots on and starts making rules. First rule, a schedule with everyone's hours for the next week will be posted by Friday morning. Second rule, you must clock in before your posted shift start time, but not more than 5 minutes before your shift. Third rule, you must clock out at the end of your posted shift end time, no more than 5 minutes after. At the end of my first shift, after these rules were created, I clocked out and left everyone else to do the cleanup. To be clear, it's not like I was getting time and a half overtime or anything. All I expected was to be paid my normal rate, and they didn't want to pay even that, so I clocked out and left. At the beginning of my next shift, they were angry. They expected me to clock out and then work over an hour for free, every single shift. These were only 5-hour shifts too. I refused. The next week, they posted a new schedule with my shift ending an hour later. Since everyone saw the list, they all got mad. I guess they were all just fine with wage theft until one person refused. The next week, everyone had an extra hour on their shifts. At this point, his wage theft scheme had failed. Fast forward a couple weeks, and this new manager doesn't come in on Thursday. He doesn't come in until Monday. No schedule is posted. Monday afternoon, I go in to get my check and say, "See you next week." I'm told my shift started half an hour ago. I say I made plans since I wasn't on the schedule. No schedule means I couldn't be on it. The manager points to a schedule posted on the wall, printed just hours before, after some of the shifts on it had already started. I thanked him for posting next week's schedule early and started to leave. Then I was threatened with termination, and I kept walking. Came back a week later and talked with a daytime guy doing the same job. He said it was a bad week. Many machines were down, and he was walking around with like $100 in tokens because he was spending much of his time giving refunds, to the point he didn't have enough uninterrupted time to make any repairs. He was also keeping a roll of masking tape with him to tape over the coin slots as the machines failed. This meant a lot more use on the remaining machines, which started to show it quickly. I go to clock in and was told I had been fired. I smiled and walked out. Spoke with the daytime guy a while later. Apparently, they never filled my position. People with mechanical and electrical knowledge willing to work minimum wage are rare. Instead, he was getting 14 hours a week and time and a half overtime, with a base pay almost twice what I was getting. This extra expense came out of the department budget, which also paid for replacement parts. Even before this, it was never enough to buy enough parts. This from the department budget thing was from the same manager. He didn't want normal payroll to go up. For a while, basically everyone was carrying around $20 in tokens to give refunds, but all the comps were unacceptable to the manager, so now only the sales desk could issue refunds, which meant ordering pizza took forever, and many people just left angry rather than waiting for a refund. Most machines had tape over the token slots. This backup at the sales desk didn't last long, as few people were coming and no one was booking parties anymore. Other than staff, it was basically empty. It didn't even smell like pizza anymore. With no customers, the daytime guy finally had time to make repairs, but didn't have the parts to do most repairs. As far as I know, that manager stayed there until the place went under about 8 months after I was fired for not working a shift that his own rules said I could not work. Am I the jerk for ditching my friend and her kid at a restaurant because they were late? My friend, Samantha, is a stay-at-home mom and has a 4-year-old daughter, Katie. Since her daughter's birth, she always insisted that I go to her place if I ever want to hang out. Even though she lives about 45 minutes away from me, I always did it in the beginning because I did value our friendship, and Katie was her first, so I could understand how she'd be stressed with a newborn. Recently, I started to put my foot down and wanted her to meet me halfway. I felt like her kid, she only has Katie, was old enough to handle being outside, and I was tired of driving just to hang out at her house. We always picked a place halfway, so I felt like it was doable. During the last 3 hangouts, she was over 30 minutes late, and each time she claimed that she got mom privileges for being late because she had to wrangle her kid into the car and do other mom things I wouldn't understand, according to her, because I'm childless. She asked to hang out this past weekend, and I told her that if she was late again, I'd leave. Lo and behold, the day came and she was late. After 30 minutes, I got up and left, but went to hang out in the coffee shop across the street because I was curious just how late she'd be. She was over an hour late, and when she found out from the waitress that I left, she started to call and text me. She said that I was callous and selfish for making her drive 25 minutes away from her home with a toddler only to leave, and that she only ever came out for my benefit. I told her that I hang out with multiple friends who bring their kids out with us, and they're never late, so it was pretty crappy to blame being late on Katie, who is a perfectly sweet kid. She's never been a problem during our outings. Samantha just kept pulling the "you're not a mom, so you wouldn't get it" card. I heard later from a mutual friend that Samantha has been blasting me in their mommy group and saying I was bullying her for putting her kid first. I feel like her reaction wouldn't be so strong unless she was actually upset, so I'm starting to feel like I am a jerk. I mean, she's right that I don't get it, as I don't have kids, but I still feel annoyed that she's late, and I feel justified for leaving. My time is precious too. I'm not sure whether or not I should reach out. Not the jerk. If she knows it's going to take 30 minutes extra, she should leave 30 minutes earlier. It's really not that hard. Dad here. Being occasionally late is understandable. I've literally had kids throwing up moments before we're supposed to get in the car, or picking up a coffee mug and pouring it on the rug, stuff like that. Some things you just can't avoid. Being consistently late just means she isn't planning well. It does not take 30 minutes to get a kid into the car, so I'm guessing she isn't watching the clock and is blaming her lateness on her kid, which will be really bad once the kid picks up on it and starts thinking there's something wrong with herself because mommy keeps blaming her when talking to other people. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. I'm a mother of 4. Guess what you can't use mom privileges for? School, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, parties, flights. Guess what else you can't use mom privileges for? Being chronically late. Karen tries to force me to make my son wear a helmet even though he's old enough to make that decision himself. I'm 42, male, and my son, who's 15, is a good kid and he loves to skateboard. He's actually pretty talented and is even sponsored by the local skate shop. He skated since he was 7. Until he was 13 or so, I always made him wear a helmet. He started resisting wearing a helmet around then, and while I would prefer that he does wear one, I know I can't control every aspect of his life. By that point, his body had learned how to fall correctly when he messed up on a trick. I used to skate back in the day. If you skateboard, you know what I mean. So I made a compromise with him. If he's just out street skating with his friends, he doesn't need to wear one. But if he's at a park that requires it, or is skating at a bowl or a half pipe, or if he's otherwise attempting something dangerous for the first time, then he needs to wear one. He readily agreed and has been good about wearing a helmet in those circumstances. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, my wife, who's 41, was running an errand the other day, and she saw our son out skateboarding, doing tricks down a small 5-stair set, and he wasn't wearing a helmet. She flipped out, pulled over, yelled at him in front of his friends, and made him come home. Now, it's not that my wife didn't know about my helmet rules, but in her view, what he was doing qualified as dangerous. He can ollie down stair sets almost 3 times that size. She's never really loved that he's been into skateboarding. She always wanted him to do team sports, and as such, I don't think she fully appreciates how good he is for his age, nor does she understand that he knows what his limits are and what he's doing. She's now insisting that he wear a helmet at all times, much to my son's chagrin. I pointed out to her, privately, that this is ridiculous. He's at an age where he can make this choice himself, and on top of that, our daughter, who's 14, who does cheer and gymnastics and doesn't have to wear a helmet, despite head injuries being fairly common in those sports. To make my point, I got one of those cheerleader helmets and declared that she now needs to wear a helmet too, since her brother has to. Our daughter is kind of a weirdo, and to her credit, thinks this is all pretty funny, and said something like, "I will be known as the helmet queen," and started wearing it at practice. My wife is now freaking out because she doesn't want our daughter to stick out at games or competitions and make people think that she's special. Yes, seriously, she said that. My wife is saying I'm both undermining her and encouraging our son to do dangerous things, and that our daughter is going to get bullied for wearing a helmet. So, am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You're too concerned with being the cool parent. Everyone wears helmets, even Olympic athletes. Aside from safety, he could lose his sponsorship. Nobody wants their brand tied to a gross negligence and poor role models. Even Tony Hawk wears one. Yeah, I was going to say that. Every video I remember seeing of Tony Hawk, he has a helmet on. He doesn't always have pads on, but he always wears a helmet. I think OP needs to make a distinction of when protection is needed. If he's just cruising around and using it as transportation, he's probably fine. If he's jumping down flights of stairs, he probably needs a helmet. Not necessarily from his own skill level, but from possible interference from the outside world, errant cyclists, or oblivious people walking around. You said your daughter is kind of a weirdo, and to her credit, thinks it's all pretty funny. Actually, your daughter sounds like the only sensible one among the 4 of you. She's comfortable enough with herself to know wearing a safety device isn't going to affect her socially in the long run, and knows how to embrace change. Frankly, I'm surprised at how level-headed she is when the 3 of y'all seem to be equally stubborn. While your son needs a crash course in why his safety comes before his looks, and your wife needs to chill out about worrying that your daughter is going to look different, you are by far the biggest jerk of the group for your blatant disregard for your son's physical safety and dragging your daughter into your argument with your wife. You're the jerk. Also, your daughter is hilarious. You're the jerk. I'm a nurse, and the one time I wasn't home to make him wear a helmet, he crashed his skateboard and was injured. Head injuries can be serious and are preventable with a helmet. Again, you're the jerk. Parents told me that spending long amounts of time with any of their adult kids is bad for their marriage. I, 26, male, was recently told by my parents, who are in their late 50s, that I wouldn't be able to live with them for more than a night, even if I lost my job, because it's bad for their marriage. My sister, who's 29, has a chronic illness that forces her to visit my parents for about 1 week at a time to see a specialist in our home city. My parents told me that even my sister spending a week with them is bad for their marriage, and they have to put an end to it. This whole conversation started because there might be a lapse in my lease, and I might not have a place to live for a few weeks in June. I own a travel trailer, so they said I could live in that at a campground before my new lease starts. I was shocked that even if push came to shove, I wouldn't be able to land at their place for a short while. 2 years ago, when lockdown hit, my girlfriend, 24 female, and I were displaced. We crashed at a friend's place for 2 months because my parents, who literally own 2 houses, wouldn't allow us to stay at either. My mom told me then, "We would always let you stay with us, but we just can't house your partner as well. She's a taker." Okay, whatever. My mom was newly sober, so I didn't think much of it. Well, 2 years later, here we are, and I am in fact not allowed to stay with them. I quoted my mom back to her. She called me manipulative. My dad shouted at me, and they both told me, "A lot has changed in the last 2 years. We are doing a lot better, and living with you is bad for our marriage. We can't live with you at all anymore unless you become very sick or are in severe debt." Well, guess they're going straight to the nursing home if they live long enough. More context. My mom drinks too much, and she's been sober for 2.5 years. My parents have seen the same therapist since, which seems fishy. Mother went from aggressively pushing meds on the whole family for years to staunchly hating all meds. End rant. Crap like this makes me so grateful for the family I'm building with my girlfriend. No plans on having kids though. Mother-in-law breaks in my house, so I called the cops on her. I, 27 female, split from my soon-to-be ex-husband, who's 27 male, 3 months ago on the day that our son was born. This is because I'm ginger, my husband is blonde, but our baby came out with dark hair. He freaked out in the delivery room, and his behavior got him kicked out of the hospital. I had to beg him to do a paternity test, and he finally agreed to after a month, and it proved that I did not cheat. We had been together since we were 13, so I was devastated, and all I wanted was him back. But I've come to my senses and decided that someone who believed that school-level Punnett squares are the be-all and end-all of biological inheritance is not the type of person that I want to be with. I was also treated like crap by everyone but my older brother, Alex, while we were waiting for the results, because they all thought that I had cheated. It was a horrible experience, and as a result, I've lost many friends and family members. Since the results came back, my ex has been begging me to get back with him. I moved in with Alex after we split, and he comes almost every day to beg me to get back with him. My in-laws have also been harassing me too, especially my mother-in-law, who's come over 4 times in the past week asking me to forgive her son and to let God back into my heart. I used to be a Christian, and so are all of my in-laws and my family, but how I was treated when my baby was born made me lose faith fast. The whole church community treated me like trash during this whole ordeal, and it made me want nothing to do with them anymore, and I don't want to raise my son in that sort of a community. Yesterday, my mother-in-law turned up to Alex's when he wasn't here, and she had the pastor from the church I used to attend with them. They practically forced their way in, and I was being berated for not forgiving my ex's lapse in judgment. The pastor basically sat there and said that I would be going to heck if I didn't take my ex back. I excused myself to the bathroom and called the police. Pastor and mother-in-law were escorted out. Now, I'm being harassed on social media and being called and texted by literally everyone that knows both me and my ex and his family. They're calling me the jerk for going nuclear and calling the police on 2 people who weren't being threatening, and they're demanding that I apologize immediately. I'm starting to feel bad now because I know they care in their own twisted way, and I shouldn't have gone nuclear on them. Am I the jerk? You know what? Social media is vastly overrated. Why don't you take a break from it for a week or a year or 2? And mute your phone. Nobody's saying anything new. Your husband and his community of flying monkeys treated you abominably. Thank God for DNA tests to prove that you aren't a cheater. By their actions, they all showed their true selves. You don't have to accept their demand that you get over it and forgive them. Your loving husband may say that he's sorry now, but take him to court and make him sorry. Best of luck, not the jerk. Agreed 100%. Granted, he might not ever do something like this again in his lifetime if you were to take him back. Then again, you might sneeze in front of him wrong one day and get the same treatment. And the actions of your soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law and pastor are unforgivable. They both should be ashamed of themselves. Of course, they don't see it that way and they never will. Not the jerk. Move on with your life. Find someone who respects you and whose family isn't cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's odd no one has heard that kids are often born with different colored hair. I'm blonde, and my ex was blonde as a kid. Our son was born with almost black hair. Then it slowly lightened up to almost white. He was a total towhead and is still dark blonde in his mid-20s. There was never a question about his paternity regardless. These people are ridiculous, and I'd cut them all out of my life. Focus on my now baby and move on. In case anyone wondered, you don't go to heck for not taking an ex-jerk back either. Forget them. Not the jerk. Christians, you say? The sooner you get away from this circus, the better. Don't apologize, don't look back. They are not worth your time. You did nothing wrong at all, whatsoever. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I have to punch in on the clock? Fine, pay me overtime. I, 31 male, started working for my uncle 2 years ago. He has a company with some business partners, and I work directly under him, learning every perk of running the business and also being a personal assistant to him. We settled on a contract in which I'd receive a fixed monthly amount with a bonus of an additional salary by the end of every year. While I had no overtime pay, I had total control over my work schedule. And by total, I mean total. I could come to the job just 3 days a week as long as I delivered results. My husband knew my work ethic, so it was kind of a win for him since when needed, I'd work 60 to 65 hours a week if required. I could also work during a holiday, and I was available on call nearly 24/7 if anyone needed anything from me related to work. Work was running great until September of last year, when my uncle took a couple of days to travel to another state to meet new clients. One of his associates, let's call him Gordon, took his role in the company for those days to support some of his roles. Due to having worked a 14-hour shift the day before the travel, and also having had 2 12-hour shifts the week before, I was dead tired. Since we had little to no work piled up, I took an early leave the first day he was there and arrived way after lunch the day after. I then started working normally from the third day until he came back a week later. He was furious at my attitude, berating my uncle for even contracting me in the first place, since I don't even work full regular hours, and he demanded, among the other business partners, the company has 6 total owners, including my uncle, that I at least punch in my working hours. If I don't meet the quota, those would be deducted from my monthly payment. There are a ton of labor laws where I live, and employees have a certain amount of hours required to work each month. Every hour short of that is deducted from the monthly payment, and every hour beyond is paid as overtime. Other partners backed up Gordon's claim, stating that I needed more supervision on what I was doing, which my uncle was forced to comply with. His only remark was, "Since we're doing it by law, it means that we also will pay him overtime according to the law, right?" They all agreed, and from October forward, I would start punching my hours in on the job every day. Cue the malicious compliance. That was exactly what I did. Gordon was expecting a decrease in my pay due to being in the company at my least busy week since I arrived, but in fact, I usually pull tons of overtime. Also, if they need to call me after I left, they have to punch in the hours from the moment I left until I finish the call, resulting in free overtime pay. One more thing. By law, the rate of overtime pay increases the more overtime is done in a month. It's a really weird formula, but to simplify, my average overtime hours pay 1/3 higher than the average overtime hours of other employees who have the same monthly salary as me. My monthly income is now 30% higher due to the overtime I started receiving. In a busy month, that could even get close to 50% higher, even though I'm actually working a little less than before. Gordon can't go back to the same situation as before, since my uncle made sure that once I started punching my hours, there was no going back and all partners approved. I got my jerk ex-friend kicked out of our friend group. I, 24 female, have epilepsy. I have a service dog, fully certified, who's trained to help me with my seizures. I've been diagnosed since I was a kid, and I've had my current dog, Bailey, for 4 years now, and she's the bestest girl around. Before Bailey, I had a previous service dog who we had to retire due to age, but having a service animal is by no means new for me. With her being a service dog, she's obviously always with me. I have a core friend group who hangs out quite often. My one friend, let's call her Anna, also 24 female, always makes really weird and almost passive-aggressive comments about me and Bailey. Example, "Dogs shouldn't come to restaurants. You're inconveniencing people," etc. She doesn't get that I legitimately need her for my own safety. It's not just for show. My seizures are really regular. For context, I actually get two different kinds. My small ones are petite mal seizures. This essentially just looks like I'm zoning out and staring into space. Quite often, people who don't know me wouldn't even connect this. My big ones are my main concern. These are facial seizures where I fully lose consciousness. This can happen a couple times a day for me, so it's obviously really important that I manage it to the best of my abilities. Anyways, our friend Anna wanted to host a game night type of thing at her house. When we got there, she lost it on me. She told me it was incredibly disrespectful that I showed up with Bailey without asking for permission first, that I can't just assume people will be happy with a dog always being around, that I should have just stayed home if I couldn't handle being out for a few hours without Bailey. I tried apologizing and pointing out that I assumed she knew I was bringing her since I've never gone anywhere without her. That set her off even more. The guys were finally able to calm her down, but her compromise was that I had to put Bailey in the backyard. I was an idiot and said fine because I didn't want to inconvenience anyone more or continue stirring the pot. Bailey went outside and I returned inside with my friends. I ended up having a seizure, blacking out and hitting my head on the floor. I had to go to the hospital because of how hard I had hit my head. I guess my friend group absolutely went off on Anna for calling her hateful and toxic and a jealous jerk. I guess she was trying to say that I passed out for the attention and I got my way like always. Long story short, no one wants her around anymore. Since this happened to her, her sister and mom have been blowing up my phone, calling me the jerk and demanding I fix the situation, and it's honestly getting to me. So, Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She sounds awful, to be honest. Your friend group was right to stick up for you. Her behavior was deplorable. Not the jerk. She literally caused you to suffer a medical incident. She had so little regard for your health and well-being that she caused you actual harm. I'd be sending her, her mom, and her sisters copies of the medical bill and then cutting them off completely. Not the jerk. I really hope you're okay after the seizure and also hitting your head. I have to commend your willingness to compromise that you'd risk getting hurt and then actually getting hurt. I know it's not intentional, but it sure got your point across. If your friend was a normal person, she would have apologized after the incident, but she doubled down and said you did it essentially on purpose. I think this is where she lost everyone. Am I the jerk for not wanting to sell my sister's horse? I'm 21, male. My sister, Layla, 21, female, has owned her horse since she was 7 years old. A little over 3 years ago, my sister had an accident in a sport which landed her in a coma. Layla's horse is boarded about a 4-hour drive from where I and most of our family live. My older brother, Jacob, 29, male, and his mom live less than an hour away from the stable. The horse is fully trained and Layla used to compete with him. The arrangement has always been that most of the horse's expenses would be paid for by Jacob's mom. Our dad isn't in the picture for any of us, as well as my mom and stepdad. After Layla's accident, Jacob started contributing financially to the horse's needs and even started riding him. Last week, my parents asked me if we could have a talk. When I got to my parents' house, my best friend and Layla's long-term boyfriend, Thomas, who's 21, was also there, and he didn't know why he was called over either. My parents pretty bluntly told the both of us that they were going to sell Layla's horse because it's unlikely that she'll ever wake up again, and it's not reasonable to keep putting money into the animal. I asked if they had spoken to Jacob or his mom about this, since they're the horse's primary caretakers and put a fair amount of money and time in as well. My parents said that they hadn't spoken to Jacob or his mom, and they shouldn't have to because it's Layla's horse and they're her parents. Thomas disagreed with this and offered to contribute financially to the horse, as well as driving up to take care of him. If and when Layla does wake up, she's going to want to know her horse is okay. I agreed with Thomas and put out the same offer. My parents told the both of us that we're not thinking clearly, and it's better for everyone if the horse is just sold. This decision didn't sit right with me since I called Jacob and asked what he thought about the matter. Jacob wants to keep the horse, and so does his mother, and his mom has said that she will fully pay for the horse's expenses by herself if it comes down to it. My parents told Jacob that he just needs to get over it because it's not his choice and hung up on him. Once the call had ended, my parents said that I was completely wrong for calling Jacob for his opinion and that they're disappointed in both Thomas and I for even considering keeping the horse. Both my parents are upset now. They won't answer my calls and have also seemed to cut contact with Thomas, who was like a son to them. Am I the jerk for going against my parents on wanting to sell my sister's horse and asking my brother his opinion on it? Edit for more info. The horse had nothing to do with Layla's accident. She was athletic and involved in multiple sports at the time. As far as I know, my parents are completely fine with money, though it is possible that they're just not telling me something. I'm not 100% sure as to who has the most legal rights to the horse because we've always called him Layla's and never really talked further about it, but I assume he belongs to my parents. Thomas and I are both in ongoing therapy. Therapy was suggested to my mom a lot back when the accident first happened, but I don't think she ever went, and my stepdad refuses to go. Both myself and Thomas still regularly go see Layla and spend hours, if not the full day with her. The main reason for keeping so much hope is that occasionally there'll be the slightest movements, yet obviously non-responsive, or her heart rate will slightly pick up. My parents don't go see her very often anymore, but they still ask both of us about how she is. I don't know if it's relevant, but Layla and I are twins, and she had been dating Thomas since she was 13 and he was 14, which explains the extra attachment. Other people do interact with the horse. He's properly groomed, and those of Layla's friends who also boarded their horses there, as well as sometimes the owners of the stable, will pet him and take him out into the paddock when they bring their own horses out and bring him in again. Layla has been in the coma for 3 years. Not the jerk. Can you, Thomas, Jacob, and his mom pool enough money and buy the horse for Jacob and his mom? You're all already putting money into the horse's care, or willing to do so. 3 years ago? I don't think this question is really about a horse. Maybe it's more about realizing that your sister probably won't come out of her coma. I believe that starting a fight about this horse is just a diversion for you and could only lead in some bad directions for all concerned. I urge you to try to come to an understanding that your parents have control over what happens to their daughter and her things at this point, especially. I also think therapy would be a great idea for you. No jerks here. Your sister is unable to ever ride her horse again. Best case scenario, she would need extensive physical and occupational therapy if she comes out of the coma, and she may never be able to or want to ride a horse again. Selling the horse is not giving up on her. Selling the horse isn't abandoning hope for her or betraying her. If Jacob wants to buy the horse, that's probably a good solution. Am I the jerk for stepping away from gift giving with my stepkids? I, 50 female, have been in a relationship with my husband, 52 male, for several years. We've been married a year, and there have been many gift-giving situations throughout. I've always been the one to make things happen. Someone wants something, I figure out how to get it done. I've always been involved in the gift selection process for his kids, who are both in their mid to late 20s. On my side of the family, we've never done the step words, and as it pertains to them, it's always been the kids or our kids. I've used it in this title in case you feel it's pertinent. So here's my issue. In each of these instances, I do not get a thank you. I barely get a vague acknowledgement. I did get an awkward, thanks, I guess, on one birthday. Gift giving has been mostly initiated and pre-planned by me. I usually enjoy it. I know it's not that the gifts have not been good gifts. I have overheard on more than one occasion one or both of them bragging about what their dad got them and how he's really stepped up his gift-giving game these days. It's hurtful. There's a lot of real estate between a hearty pat on the back and the disrespect that I feel. Something in the middle would be nice. I pay attention throughout the year to what they state their current interests are, an item they drool over, causes they like to support, etc., and what I would give for just a look-me-in-the-eye thank you sometimes. Most recently, one had a baby shower, and there were multiple tables full of gifts from 55 different people. 54 of them got a thank you. Guess who didn't? The slight was so obvious that another woman turned around, laughed, and said, "They didn't say it, so I will. Thank you." Yeah, not funny, but I'll play it off. It's all good, haha, pregnancy brain. I get excited about gift giving and how much they'll love something, and I just end up feeling lousy afterwards. Honestly, now that I'm typing this out, I realize that they know proper etiquette. It really is that they just don't think it applies to me for some reason. So, am I the jerk for telling their dad that I will never disapprove of any money he wants us to spend on anything he wants to give to his kids? I'm just no longer comfortable putting myself in that position when there is so little or no appreciation. I'll try to thicken my skin over this, and I'm hopeful that eventually I will resume my current level of active participation, but for now, it's okay to step back, right? Honestly, you really need to look at your husband here. He can set the tone very quickly. Whether it works or not would remain to be seen. But the fact that he's not stepping up on his own is a huge red flag. A lot of jerks in this story, but you ain't one. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Their dad should have addressed this a long time ago, and it's cruel to think you should continue doing it. A simple generic thank you would suffice. I'm at a loss over their rudeness, unless you're the reason their parents' marriage ended. Am I the jerk for telling a lady to get off a machine at the gym if she wasn't going to use it? There are 2 lat pull-down setups at our gym, and it's a very busy gym. I, 33 female, was working out on a machine behind the lat pull-downs and saw this lady, probably in her early 40s, very fit, sitting on one of the machines, chatting away, not doing a single rep. The other lat pull-down was occupied by 2 guys going pretty hard. A little background. This lady does this all the time. She loves to sit on a machine and not use it and chat with people. Once the conversation is done, she'll eventually start her workout. The number of times I've waited for her on the leg press while she chatted away not using the machine, I digress. Back to the story. I saw a timid girl, probably late teens to early 20s, shyly, very politely asked the lady if she could work in. The lady said no, that she hadn't used it yet. The girl walked away looking embarrassed. I got hot. I called out the lady and said with very clear irritation, "Excuse me, ma'am. Hey, it's very busy right now. I've watched you sit on this machine for at least the last 5 minutes chatting to your buddy without doing a single rep. If you're not going to use it, it's messed up to not let someone else in." The lady told me I was rude, but got up and let the other girl, who mouthed to me a thank you, in. The lady also reported me to management for being rude. Didn't affect my membership, just a quick word from an employee. And now this lady proceeds to glare at me anytime she sees me in the gym. When I told my friend, they said that the lady was obviously messed up, but it was not my place to say anything to her. Also that my condescending tone would have riled anyone up. Why I may be the jerk, it was none of my business. I knew neither of the people. I shouldn't have talked to her that way. I could have used a more friendly tone and more productive language. Not the jerk. And we need more people like you. Thank you. People like that contribute to the general anxiety around the gym for the people who have a hard time being forward. Be forward. Not the jerk. Here, I say something petty. Next time you see her camping out on equipment, go report her for being rude. Gym staff may think you just have it out for her for reporting you, but this crap needs to stop. Karen mother demands the password to my safe. My uncle and my mom have been arguing over this, and I feel terrible. I don't know what to think. So, my mom let me get anything under $25 for Easter, given it's on Amazon. I got a small mini ATM of sorts. It has a 4-digit passcode and makes noise when someone attempts to open it, and even louder if you fail. Plus, it automatically sucks in your money, like an ATM would. I had been looking at this for a while, saving up my allowance and planning to get it. Since it was under the price range, I asked and she got it for me. It came in yesterday, and I put the batteries in, set the code, and already put the money I had in it. I get a $10 allowance, and if I do certain tasks, I get an extra $10 to $20, which is only about $10 right now. My mom asked for the password, which frankly I thought was a joke, so I told her a fake one. I just thought it was her messing with me and trying to get me to laugh. She came home today and did her inspection of my room. I've been spending the past few days working on the rest of the house, so I haven't gotten a chance to do it. I didn't think she would try anything, so I continued making myself some sandwiches for a late brunch. It was 10 a.m. I couldn't care less. Then I heard the noise it made when you failed the passcode. I tested it night prior just in case and rushed to my room. What I see is my mom trying to get into it, then turned to me and glared. "You told me the password was 1234. Why isn't it working?" I was confused and taken back. Like, who expects this from their mom? I got upset as well and yelled at her to get out of my room and walk away from my money. She left in a huff, and when my uncle came home, he got his ear talked off, practically yelled at for it. He says I shouldn't have lied, but I didn't have to give her the passcode. Now the two are arguing, and I feel really bad for causing it. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk at all. Your mother is angry with you because she couldn't break into what amounts to your piggy bank and steal your allowance. That's some next level jerk behavior. OP. She wouldn't even be stealing it back. It's my uncle who pays me and started my whole allowance anyways, not her. So, not stealing it back, just stealing it. Kid, you gobsmacked me. My jaw just hit the desk. There are no words I can actually say that won't get me thrown off of this sub except, your mother is queen of the jerks. May no one ever rise to take her place. It doesn't get lower than stealing money from your kid that other people have given them for their own daily spending. Entitled mom tries taking my necklace, gets kicked out of the doctor's office. For some context, since last year, I've been sick. At first, we thought I'd need surgery. However, the doctor wanted to check something out first and sent me to another doctor. After a couple months of testing, this was the last one I needed. I also had messed up my leg during this time, and it made it extremely hard to walk on my own. My doctor had suggested I buy a cane, which I did. Another thing about me, while I'm an adult, I have an extreme baby face syndrome. People have thought that I was an 8th grader while I'm a freshman in college. My height of 5 feet doesn't help that either. Now with context, let's get on to the story. We've got me, Peach. We've got the nice boy, we've got entitled mother, and we've got the security guard. I'm sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for me to get called back. The doctor's office was absolutely packed, so it took a while for me to get called back. After 5 minutes of waiting, a 7-year-old boy and a mom walk in and check in. Both sit down in front of me, and I don't really think anything of it. I move my cane more towards me in order to avoid them tripping and look at the TV as I wait. After a couple minutes, I hear a small voice speak. "Excuse me." I look down from the TV and see the boy across from me looking at me. Me. "Yes, can I help you?" Nice boy. "How come you have a cane?" The mother looks up from her phone and looks at me, then him. Karen. "Don't ask people those questions." Me. "Oh, it's okay. I don't mind people asking. I had an injury and the cane helps me walk." Nice boy. "Does it hurt when you walk?" Me. "Sometimes, but the cane helps." I know kids tend to be naturally curious, so I didn't take his comments as rude. After he asked, we started talking about how our days were, our age, and eventually got to talking about the birds. The kid was an absolute encyclopedia about birds and told me a lot of facts about birds. One of my favorite he told me is that a toucan's skin is actually more translucent, which is crazy. Nice boy noticed my necklace, which is a metal raven, and said, "Wow, I like your necklace. Is it a raven or a crow skull?" Me. "It's a raven skull. You know a lot about birds. That's really awesome." "Yeah, I really like..." Entitled mom cut him off. "Excuse me?" I looked to her. She had this look of pure hate and disgust. Me. "Yes? Is there something wrong?" Karen. "Why are you wearing a skull around your neck? That's kind of inappropriate, don't you think?" Me. "No, it's just a metal raven skull. Nothing inappropriate about it." "It's kind of evil, isn't it?" What? Her saying that blew me out of the water. In what world is wearing something like a metal bird skull evil? Me. "Ma'am, it's just a necklace. It's nice. I liked it. I bought it." Karen. "You really need to take it off. You're going to corrupt my son. We're Christian." Looking over to the kid, he looked as dumbfounded as I was. The boy. "Mama, it's just a necklace." "Be quiet." Then she tells me, "You need to take that off right now and give it to me. Also, you look too young to be using a cane. You're just wanting attention." Me, taking none of her BS. "Ma'am, I'm not giving you my necklace or my cane. And if anything, you're the one wanting attention, and you're ignorant for thinking that just because my necklace has a bird skull on it that it's evil. Also for thinking young people can't have a cane just because they're young. Young people use things such as canes and walkers all the time." "How dare you talk back to me?" At this point, she got up and tried to grab my cane and necklace. I was ready to push her back, but the security guard who was coming inside for some water stepped in between entitled mom and me. Security guard. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to sit down and leave this person alone." "What? No, they're evil. I'm trying to free them from the devil." Security guard. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Now, this kind of behavior isn't tolerated here." "But my son has an appointment. I can't leave him here." Security guard. "Can you call his father? If not, you will have to reschedule." Nice boy. "My dad's in the car." At that point, security guard escorted entitled mom out of the building, and Nice boy's dad came in to watch his son. Nice boy's dad apologized profusely for his wife's behavior and stated that she was a little eccentric. After 10 more minutes, I was called back and said goodbye to the boy. After my appointment, he and his dad were gone and I went on my way. Something that I think is funny, however, is what Nice Boy's dad had said regarding entitled mom. I don't even know why she said it was evil. She's not even Christian. She's an atheist. I kicked my best man out of my wedding for his gamer talk about my fiance. I, 35 male, am engaged to May, 35 female. My best friend, Andre, 35 male, is the best man. Fake names. First, details. May is a huge anime and gamer nerd. Like, huge. We're all gamers, but she has like every system under the sun and loves playing video games, including the retro ones like Tetris and Sonic. She's also into MMORPGs, like Final Fantasy, JRPGs like the Tales of series, and games like My Time at Portia and Animal Crossing. May and Andre have always gotten along, but they never actually hung out near video games together. I had him and two of our other friends over for a couple of beers and cigars. Andre heard May turn on her Switch, and he asked if she had Super Smash Bros. She said yes, and Andre said, "Let me show you a thing or two," in a joking manner. I warned Andre that he was going to get thrashed, to which he made the comment, "Girl gamers don't scare me." No, May did not hear him. Well, May suited up with Yoshi, and she absolutely destroyed all of them without trying. They asked her to change characters. She went to young Link, then Peach, then Jigglypuff, then Roy, and lastly her favorite character, Ness. Beat them all. Now I'll admit, my friends have short tempers with gaming. I could see they were frustrated, so I proposed we do something else. Everyone except Andre was done with the games. He proposed they play Tetris, free on the Switch and already downloaded. And once again, Andre lost. Hard, like extra hard, painfully hard. To put it short, he got completely thrashed. May won first place in two-player every game. Andre stopped playing, and they all went home afterwards, annoyed. I don't think May noticed. Later on, Andre and my friends invited May to a game of Rainbow Six. May gladly accepted and chose her favorite, Frost. They played the private party matches, and she basically was always the last one standing. May told the guys she was going to take a bathroom break and put her headset down. I asked May if I could play the next round. She agreed, and I put on her headset, only to hear my friends talking trash about her. They were saying things like, "Why are girls such tryhards?" and "She's good at gaming, but I bet she can't make a sandwich." Now, they didn't know I was there, so I spoke and told them to shut up. Andre laughed and said they were just joking, and I said that's not funny, and what if May came back and heard them? He said it's just gamer talk, and I said it wasn't. Andre told me I was being a jerk and dragging down the group. He also told me they wouldn't be talking smack if I told May to stop trying so hard. Long story short, after an argument, I kicked Andre out of the wedding. I turned the PS4 off. When May asked why it was off, I said the others got off, but I didn't tell her what they said. Our friends were saying I was overreacting and they didn't mean it, but I honestly don't care. It just made me so mad. Am I the jerk? Did I overreact? Edit. I do plan to tell May what happened. This only happened last night, and she's at her mom's right now. I plan to tell her tomorrow. Gamer talk, bro talk, locker room talk. Try and associate it with whatever culture or subculture you want. It's all hateful regardless. Not the jerk. Yep, not the jerk. Good on you for standing up for her. If the bros weren't so immature, maybe they could find someone besides their moms to make them a sandwich. Bravo to you. Tell them bros to turn off mom's basement light when they're done. My Karen mother-in-law demands I eat her horrible cooking. I gave her a piece of my mind. My husband, who's 23, and I'm 21. We come from different cultures. For example, I'm an immigrant and I moved to America when I was just 12 years old. There are many things my husband and his family do differently than mine, things that I'm not quite accustomed to. One of them is how they prepare and season their food. To me, it's super bland, and the food combinations they choose don't seem to go together. For example, my mother-in-law puts mayo in literally everything. I've even seen her making a tortilla pizza with mayo as her base, which she offered to me. Each time she offers me food, I make up some kind of an excuse to avoid eating it, and I try to be as polite as possible about it. Unfortunately, after I invited her to dinner, she felt compelled to do the same for me, even when I told her it was not necessary. The next day, after the dinner we had together, she started making plans with my husband. When my husband brought it up to me, I told him I really didn't want to go, to which he replied, "My mom's food isn't that bad. Can't you just please deal with it for one day?" In most cases, I would have just sucked it up to maintain a good relationship with my mother-in-law, but I'm pregnant in my first trimester and I'm feeling extra nauseous. I honestly don't think I'd be able to keep the food down in the condition I'm in. My husband grew up eating her food, which is maybe why he doesn't think it's that bad. I mean, even my family thinks so. When my mom invited her over for a family get-together, she brought some pasta, which sauce tasted like a whole package of ketchup was dumped in it. I ended up venting to my sisters and mom about the issue, and they all gave me the advice to just be honest. My mom even said that if I don't be honest now, it's something I'll have to deal with for the rest of my life. So I decided to call her and express to her that I'm not accustomed to eating these types of foods that she's used to making, and since I'm pregnant, it'll be really hard for me to swallow the food because of my nausea. I even offered to teach her some recipes from my homeland that she seemed to really enjoy. It didn't go well. She was really offended and told me that she'll never cook for my ungrateful self again, and told my husband. My husband is really disappointed in me because he felt like I should have just pretended to keep the peace, and he's upset that now my mother-in-law doesn't even want to invite me over again. I feel super bad now, and seriously, I want to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, or if I was being too mean or disrespectful. Update. I invited my mother-in-law out to a tea cafe and I spoke to her in person. I was able to explain myself better and chose not to back down on me not liking the types of foods that she cooks. This is my life, and I'm choosing not to live the rest of my future being pressured into eating foods that I don't like, and I'm also choosing to live my relationship based on honesty. I had an honest discussion with my mother-in-law and explained to her that I love her as a person and appreciate the time and effort she puts into making my husband and I food, but I honestly do not like the type of foods that she chooses to make. I explained to her that it doesn't make her any less of a person or a bad cook, it's just my personal preference. She took it extremely well this time and apologized for insulting me. She told me that she has never been the best cook and would love to take me up on my offer to teach her some meals from my homeland. I ended up suggesting that we take cooking classes together, and she loved the idea. I think the little bump in the road gave us a stronger bond, and I'm glad that we were able to patch things up. I personally don't think the advice that I was getting from the majority of this sub was good advice, and I would recommend to anyone in my situation to be honest and kind. I even made it known to my mother-in-law that I would appreciate the same kind of honesty coming from her. And if she ever disliked food I made, or even a gift that I gave, to please let me know so I can make or get something that she'd enjoy. She even made jokes about previous gifts that I had got her. I mean, you called her up to tell her that you don't like her food? You wouldn't be offended if she did the same thing to you? If she was like, the food you make is really unfamiliar and I honestly can't stomach it at all, wouldn't you be offended too? I would be. Soft, you're the jerk. No, you don't need to eat her food. You don't have to like her food. But calling her up to tell her how you literally cannot imagine trying to choke down her food is pretty rude. You're the jerk. Seriously, you're the jerk here. Pregnancy was the perfect excuse to say you just couldn't eat the food because your sense of smell and taste is being weird, rather than insulting her cooking. You're the jerk. You don't call someone up and tell them that you don't like the food that they cook for you. You just don't. If you're pregnant, you can say you're nauseous the night of the dinner and just eat very little. But it's just basic manners when you're being hosted to pretend the food is good. Yes, you might have to deal with this the rest of your life. Who cares? Occasional meals you don't like are not the end of the world. I created a tech support help desk for my family since they always need my help with technology. I'm female, 24 years old. I'm studying computer science and I'm currently doing an internship at a medium-sized company that hasn't laid off 30% of its employees yet. So, since I'm the one who knows about computers, my family sees me as their personal tech support, and my family is big. I live with my mom, my little brother, 2 of my aunts, and their kids. The kids are lazy when it comes to tech because they know that I'll do it for them. But my mom and aunts are beyond tech illiterate. They're tech morons. I'm constantly interrupted during my studies or my work because my cousins forgot their Disney Plus profile pin, or my mom needs to reset her email password again. I actually set up a cloud password manager for them that they do not use because they always forget that it's an option. So a few weeks ago, one of my little cousins wanted me to help him reset a password after he got locked out of Google, and he aggressively knocked on my door, demanding that I help him. I asked him, "Do I look like tech support to you?" And he said yes, with a straight face. So I got a domain and set up a help desk. Then I told my family that if they wanted any help from me, They should go to the website and submit a ticket for my help. My aunt said that I was being ridiculous, but I was dead serious. In the following days, I would give them the cold shoulder if they tried to come to me with tech problems and just tell them to submit a ticket and I would send them the solution by mail. Forgot your mail password? Too bad. Use someone else's mail. Fortnite is lagging? Get a ticket and wait till I'm home. That helped me a lot. But then yesterday I came back from the university and the whole house was sitting in the living room telling me to sit down. They were doing an intervention on me. They said I was rude, cold, condescending, and unhelpful. My mom said she's tolerated my manly ways, no idea where that comes from, because I'm helpful with technology, but now they won't stand up to my disrespect and I'm treating them like kids. I said no, I'm treating them like customers. The discussion got heated and turned into a screaming match. I said I would move in with my ex-stepfather because he doesn't ask me to do stuff. I'm still with my family, but I feel like everyone hates me now. But my ex-father says I'm right to be annoyed by them. Am I the jerk? Okay, this is brilliant. If it was once or twice in a while, I'd say you're a jerk. This consistently with no respect for your time? Not only not the jerk, but genius. Not the jerk. No good deed goes unpunished. I'm sympathetic with folks who are technologically illiterate if they're willing to listen and at least try. Less so with those who are lazy, entitled jerks. You're facing a mixture of both, compounded by the numbers. Your solution was ingenious, good show. I'm hoping you don't actually have to move and that the threat gets them to shape up. Guess we'll have the coffee. The tale of a waiter who really messed up. My sister just reminded me about this story. It takes place in 2017. She and I were out for brunch and we had a lovely time at an upscale rooftop restaurant in the heart of our city. You know, the kind with a full setting, cloth napkins, and white tablecloth. The kind where a pancake entree has the word melange and mimosas are $16. We had a great time, even though the service was a little rushed. We get it. Saturday brunch means a lot of tables with a speedy turnover. My sister had been a waitress all through college. We even joked about her applying for the weekend shifts since she'd make great tips. When it came time to settle the check, we noticed we had been charged for 2 coffees, which we didn't order nor receive. While handing the bill back, I asked that they be taken off. Waiter: well, you got coffee. Me: I'm sorry, we actually didn't. See? I show him the pristine empty coffee cups. Waiter: no, there's 2 coffee cups on the table. Me: there are coffee cups on every table. At this point, he kind of huffs and rolls his eyes and says he doesn't have the authority to remove anything from the bill. Before I can ask for someone who can, he smirks and says the manager on duty just went on break and we'd have to wait 30 minutes for her, but he'd be asking us to wait at the host stand since they need the table. My sister and I look at each other and we both get the same idea. Sister: well, okay, guess if we're being charged for coffee, I'd like a refill. Me: oh, for me too. And can you bring cream and sugar? It was at this moment he knew he messed up. We spent another 20 minutes sipping coffee and keeping him from turning the table. We asked for refills once, and I asked if they had any raw sugar packets. By the end of it, he was pointedly ignoring us. We kinda giggled about it, and I made a very dramatic show of flourishing my card, putting it in the booklet, and setting it upright. My sister even tried to flag him down, but he refused to look in our direction. We finished and hung around until he came back with his manager. He was smirking again. I have to say, his facial expression stayed with me. Waiter, sickly sweet: okay, you two. We have a seating time limit to allow our other guests the opportunity to eat with us. Will that be all today? Me: well, we've been waiting for you to take our check. I was trying to get your attention earlier, but you must have been busy. I offer him my card and the booklet, and I've never seen a human turn red so quickly. He mutters that he'll be right back and marches off to run it. While we were waiting, the manager asked us about our experience. We said we both had a great time and we'd be back, and relayed what happened. At least we ended up enjoying the coffee. We paid, left a decent tip, and skedaddled. But it felt good knowing he probably cost himself a ticket's worth of tips over $9 in coffee. I can't believe you left a tip after that treatment. Waitstaff deserve to make a living, but that waiter all but begged for you to stiff him. Why do people still tip when servers pull this crap? Most people are more passive than you might imagine. So you tipped the guy and informed management that you enjoyed your service? Yeah, he's gonna learn from this. OP: no, I told the manager about what happened to us and I left an 18% tip. I would have left a 0 tip. In this case, it was well earned. Demand I do it your way? Okay, enjoy your brand new rusty wheel slicer. It's been years, but I'm still worried that this person is going to hunt me down in my sleep, hence the throwaway. I used to work at a deli shop just to make ends meet while I went to uni. The owner of that place was a real piece of work. If you got on her bad side, she would be both openly and passively aggressive, with the general vibe that you were an incompetent idiot no matter what you did. I heard that woman scream at a 15-year-old on her second day because she had mixed up coffee and teacups, which differed in size by only 1 ounce, just to give you an idea of her personality. After this whole experience, my dad told me that, as a general hint, it may be good to be suspicious if a workplace hires exclusively teens with no experience, because they're very unlikely to recognize crappy workplace treatment. There were 2 people in this place who didn't take her crap. Me, a mid-20s in recovery who's seen way worse, and a 45-year-old Iranian man who told her that she could buzz off when she went off on him for not being willing to come in early to his 11-hour shift to prep ingredients. Off the clock, of course. I liked that dude. With the stage set, onto the malicious compliance. When I started, this place desperately needed a new wheel meat slicer. The one they had made a constant screeching noise and drove everyone crazy. About a month and a half into my employment, they got one. Industrial grade, cost $5,000. Both looked and worked accordingly. Amazing piece of kit. As we were all celebrating and unpacking it, I flipped through the instructions booklet to look up how it works, and specifically how to clean it, as there were quite a few parts. The manual says to clean everything detachable thoroughly, but that the wheel itself should be cleaned by letting it run on very low speed with safety precautions, and using a cloth and alcohol-based cleaning agent on the exposed part. There were some pictures and detailed instructions on how to do this, and it explicitly stated not to take the whole wheel off and deep clean it, as this would remove the wheel lubricant and anti-corrosive agent and risk damage to the machine, and to especially not let water or any cleaning agents get into the machine without making sure to thoroughly replace any lubricant. I was working the evening shift, so 99% of the time it was up to me to clean it. The instructions is how I clean the machine because I trust the designer to know how to clean it. Or I do for about 2 days until my boss sees me, asks what I'm doing and why I'm not taking the wheel off to clean it. She goes off on me about food safety and hygiene standards, telling me how disgusting I am for doing it this way. I stand my ground and inform her that I do it this way because of the instructions, that I'm following the manual, and I explain the reasoning behind it. If we scrub it down, especially the inner part, the grease will go away a lot faster and we'll risk damage to the machine. She basically tells me to shove it and to do it her way. Now, I'm not going to ruin a $5,000 machine because one woman doesn't understand how it works. But the very next day, my manager sees me clean the machine and gives me an extremely condescending talk down on how, "This isn't how we approach hygiene," and how, "Boss told me you don't seem to understand food safety." My explanation falls on deaf ears again, and I'm also informed not only am I expected to take the wheel off and scrub it at the end of the day, but after every single use. Boss also wants me to make sure I spray off the inside section to ensure there's no bacteria in there, with some hints that there'd apparently been a whole colony of life growing in there due to my 2-day negligence. She wants me to spray soap and water mixture into the cogs of the machine they just bought. The blade is stainless steel, but the cogs aren't. Fine. If that's what you want me to do, that's what I'll do. Every day, 5 times a day, I take that machine apart and scrub it down. Every day I see that lubrication disappear more and more, and after a week, it's all gone, eventually becoming replaced by growing patches of rust. I feel bad for the machine, but I do as I've been told. I only work 6 days a week, so every day I come in after my break thinking that surely yesterday my manager would have reacted. Nope. She takes it apart just like I do, cleans it like I do, and doesn't seem to think twice about the fact that this brand new machine is rusting apart in front of our eyes. In fact, she goes the extra mile and also scrubs the cog itself, which is probably why a year or so worth of lubricant disappeared in 1 week. The thing about rusty machinery is that it usually works up until a certain point, but once it reaches that point, there's no going back. One day, I turn it on, and it makes a screeching noise I can only imagine came from the soul of this bit of kit, wondering why God has forsaken it, and it's like the clocks all stop. My coworker in the pastry section comes over to ask what that noise is, My boss and manager come into the room with the same question, and I just shrug and slice my salami. Boss tells her co-owner to go get some lubrication for the gears, and after a minute, he puts some spray-on lube in front of me and tells me to lube the gears up. I ask him where the lithium lubricant paste is, since according to the instructions, that's what you need, and he seems flabbergasted that putting something made for hinges and ball bearings isn't appropriate for a meat slicer. 2 days and some tinnitus later, he's acquired some grease and then proceeds to be stumped when I let him know that I'm not going to stop doing my regular job to spend 30 minutes greasing up this machine unless someone else takes over my section or they pay me overtime. My boss is meanwhile demanding to know why I haven't told them we needed to stock up on lithium grease, which I don't even bother to respond to. I make sandwiches. I'm not your mechanic. I left that job a few weeks later, and when I did, the machine was still crying the song of its ancestors every time we turned it on. And we were still scrubbing it down from the inside out daily, of course. I have since then gotten a sneaking suspicion I know what happened to its predecessor, and me and my dad, who is actually a mechanic, still laugh about it sometimes. My boss did ask, rhetorically, at one point, how the heck the machine got to that stage so fast. I answered that it's probably because we've been scrubbing the lubrication and corrosion protection off several times a day, and I take great pleasure in the memory that she completely ignored me. It's the only time while I was there that she didn't snap back at me, and I like to think she remembered back to when I explicitly told her that if we clean this thing in that way, this is exactly what would happen. Overall, I don't think a $5,000 machine would make or break anything, but yowza, did that feel good. Apparently, my job wants us to be comedians. My restaurant got new menus printed, and apparently they decided to add a little "buy a joke for 50 cents" thing at the bottom of the page, without bothering to tell any of us about it or say what jokes, etc. So the first time anyone asked me about it, I had no idea what they were talking about. I'm a bartender, but recently they've been cutting so much staff all the time that they had just me up front that day. Anyway, I seat a table of German tourists, and then when I come back from the bar to take their order, a guy asks if he can buy a joke and has some quarters laid out on the table. I was like, huh? Then he pushes the quarters at me and says again that he wants to buy a joke. Me. Still have no idea what he's talking about. Now gaslighting myself that I must not be hearing it right due to his accent or something, because what I think he said doesn't make any sense. It was probably clear to them at this point that I was confused as heck, so one of them points to the menu where I see it printed at the bottom. I apologize and explain to them we just got new menus printed and we weren't told about the joke bit edition. We all kind of awkwardly laugh off the situation and they go on to order. Except the one guy who keeps asking about a joke. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have one ready to go. He kept pushing it, so I said I'd try to think of one. Any joke I'd ever known had, of course, flown out of my brain the moment they asked. And when I tried to remember any, they were all too long or not appropriate for work. I check on the other tables, the bar, etc., doing all the jobs in front of house. Yes, I know it's messed up, but we don't have time to get into all of that. I pop into the back where the shift lead is unpacking the week's order of food and supplies because apparently upper management figured he could unpack and stock the entire shipment himself and be a server and manager at the same time. I know. I ask him what's up with the joke thing, and they never mentioned it to him either. He said I should tell them my job, which made me laugh, but I doubt my table of tourists would have gotten that or found it funny. Anyway, I go back out, and most people seem understanding or chill, seeing just me running around doing everything. But the joke guy persists. Almost any time I'm near their table, running food or bringing a check, whatever, he mentions it. I try to stay behind the bar as much as I can because I'm starting to get annoyed. Sir, I ain't got time for jokes right now. I'm trying to make this place run. The whole thing was upsetting me. The way he kept pushing the coins at me, like dance monkey dance. That they want me to be a clown for 50 cents while I'm trying to do my actual job and others for 50 cents. Are you kidding me? Now I gotta learn jokes for this? The fact that they didn't tell us at all about it or give us some kind of approved joke list, whatever. I gotta make up my own material? I'm not a stand-up comedian. I know it's probably not that big of a deal, and they were probably just trying to be quirky or whatever the deal, but it annoyed me. It felt low-key degrading, and just one more thing in a long list of annoyed or disrespectful things that upper management has put upon us for no good reason and zero communication. It's stupid anyway. Since then, I've probably only gotten 2 other people that ever mentioned it, One being a regular that noticed it and thought it was dumb, and some other dude that didn't give a hoot when I didn't have one and laughed when I told him I don't know what's up with it either. They just put it on the menu. I have, however, been trying to pick up jokes here and there that I could possibly use, because my anxiety-riddled self doesn't want to feel unprepared. They never seem to stick, but I think I finally found one. The perfect joke. For the bar anyway. It's short, concise, easy to remember, and bonus, it should have the desired effect of making sure they never want to ask you for one again. Alright, here it is. What does dark humor and kids with... Oh, dang. They never get old. Boom! Said with all the enthusiasm of Wednesday Addams should do the trick. Or hey, if they think it's funny, then they're either a super chill person with a dark sense of humor and we could get along, or they like it a little too much, they're a psycho and should be avoided. Either way, it's a win. Am I the jerk for making an insurance claim against someone just trying to help me? I take my dogs for a run every afternoon to some fields about 10-minute drive from my home. I load them up in the canopy in the back of my truck and pop one window of canopy into the open position so my dogs can look at things and get some fresh air. The gas struts on the window have failed, meaning the window no longer supports itself while open and drops down. So I wrap a strap around the inner strut to act as a support so the window doesn't drop down and close while going over bumps. I did the same thing that afternoon, but after getting home and dropping the dogs off, I needed to pop into the shops. Problem was that I had left the canopy window open while driving to the shops. On the way there, some bloke got out of his car at a set of traffic lights and runs over to my truck and attempts to close the canopy window down for me. But because it was braced so well, he had to put extra force into trying to close it. I watched this all unfold from the mirror. It happened extremely fast, so I had no opportunity to tell him to stop. He put so much force into trying to close it for me that he completely shattered the window. The light went green, so we pulled over on the side of the intersection. I got his details from him. He's 20 years old, driving an old four-wheel drive. Really nice kid. But am I the jerk for making an insurance claim to have the canopy replaced? It was an older canopy, so they could not make repairs. I do feel bad that he was only trying to help out, but in the same breath, I was left with a problem I never created. Should I have just copped it on the chin? I left the window open mistakenly. He was just trying to be a good Samaritan and was extremely apologetic about it. He actually went back and cleaned glass off the road with a broom. He also cut his feet in it. Edit. Some people saying I'm taking advantage of the situation, which is not true. I asked insurance to repair the old canopy. The manufacturer came back and said it can't be replaced because the model was no longer supported and had been superseded. So the whole canopy must be replaced under the insurance claim. It was already broken, and you are taking advantage of the situation to get it fixed. That young man's insurance costs are going to go up for the next 7 years thanks to you. You're the jerk. Or the kid could have just not touched someone else's stuff. OP has it rigged up and working fine until the kid shattered the window. The kid should have told OP and not rushed over to mess with their stuff. Not the jerk. He shouldn't have touched your vehicle. There was no expectation for him to do so, and his actions caused the damage. Unfortunately for him, you shouldn't be stuck with the bill. Not the jerk. When will men learn that we don't need their help? I'd honestly press charges if I were you. It's guys like this that seriously creep me out. You have no right whatsoever to touch anything that belongs to me. Just trying to help? How about you help me by keeping your hands to yourself? This guy is definitely the kind to pull out chairs and hold doors open and probably considers himself a gentleman. Guys like that give me the creeps and make me so glad I was raised by my mom and didn't have to deal with my loser dad while I was growing up. I'm raising 2 sons on my own now, and I'm teaching them that women don't need their help for anything and never will. My sons will know that they are not some special little superheroes, and I'm also teaching them to mind their own business unless spoken to by a woman. My sons will not grow up to be jerks like the ones I read about on here. Karen demands I let her daughter keep my crafting supplies. I'm 31, female. My best friend, Riley, who's also 31, female, recently just got a part-time job after several years of staying home with her daughter, Ella, who's 6. She and her husband, Joe, who's 34, haven't been able to get the childcare situation totally sorted out and needed a babysitter last Saturday, so I agreed to watch Ella for the day while Riley was at work. I've been sort of the cool aunt ever since Ella was born. I typically will bring small gifts or activities whenever I know I'll be seeing her, which isn't all that often. Ella is smart and engaged and I like to give her things that will interest her and keep her occupied. One important piece of information here is that I'm a very crafty person. I have a small online store and also work with local businesses for selling and distributing small batches of my product, hand-painted wooden figurines. I thought it might be fun to introduce Ella into my hobby and business, so I ended up bringing 10 unpainted figurines to choose from, a few tubes of acrylic paint, and some paintbrushes. We immediately got to work, and Ella was so into it. She had an absolute blast painting her turtle figurine. But when it came time for me to leave, I started packing up all of my supplies, and Ella became visibly upset. Riley insisted that I leave the supplies behind so that Ella could keep and play with them. I disagreed and basically said that I have no obligation to give away any of my belongings. I personally feel like I was more than generous by babysitting Ella on my day off. I do have a regular 9-to-5 job as well, and providing a fun activity for her. Riley pointed out that I have a pretty large stock of items at home, which is true. But still, letting Ella keep the supplies and figurines would have been a loss in profit for my business. Ella cried when I didn't let her keep any of the stuff, and Riley argued that I should have never brought toys over if I wasn't willing to let Ella keep them. Now Riley hasn't been responding to any of my messages or calls, and I can only assume she's still angry over this whole thing. I thought I was doing something nice by babysitting and providing a fun activity. Am I the jerk for not letting Ella keep my crafting supplies? Edit. Just clarifying that I did let Ella keep the one completed turtle figurine that she painted herself. Everything else I took back home with me. Not the jerk. Does Riley start dismantling the swings when she leaves the playground? Not the jerk. And Ella is old enough to understand that. Karen steals my family's name for her baby and refuses to change it. This is a throwaway because my brother-in-law, 24 male, knows my main account, and sorry for the errors I'm posting from my phone. So my stepsister, 23 female, is having a new baby soon, and my whole family is excited for her, and this will be the first grandbaby for my mother and stepfather. I, 25 male, am half white and half Polynesian. They are full white for reference. So the story. My family got together and is having a good time. We were all chatting in the living room, and then the topic of the first grandbaby comes up between my mom and my stepsister. They're talking about what she will do with work and normal expecting talk when they start talking about names, and my mom starts suggesting names like Sam and Riley. Then my sis says a Polynesian name. Think Leilani or along those lines. I was a little offended because the name has a lot of importance in my family. It has a very important meaning. I would go into more detail, but the name is so specific they would know who's posting this. She said she heard the name when talking to me. Duh, it's a family name, and it has been on her mind ever since, and she's just fallen in love with it. Polynesian names are very significant to the families and people with those names. In most Polynesian cultures, names tell a story and have a significance to the family. Only certain families can have these names because of respect and genealogy and honor, like a title. I get that it's not normal here in the US, but I was offended that she thinks she can just take a name from my family like that without even thinking about my customs. I feel like it was offensive to my people because she didn't even know where my family is from. I would always tell her the island my family is from, and she would be like, okay, whatevs. She doesn't know anything about the culture or customs. So I pulled her aside and in privacy told her I didn't feel comfortable with the name she had chosen. I told her the importance of names in my culture and how they have meaning, and I even offered to sit down with her and find a story or meaning she liked and translate it into a name of my people so she can still have a pretty name, but it would also not be taken from the culture. Then she got really mad at me and said that it doesn't matter, the culture, it's just a name, and why can't I just let her be happy? I told her I would never call her kid by that name because it would be offensive to my family and I. Then she got our family involved. They all started calling me names. So I tried to explain to them the meaning of names in my culture. They told me I was in America, not the island my family is from, so it doesn't matter. So I called them some names, and they could at least have some knowledge or some appreciation for my culture before they start taking from it. I want to know, am I the jerk for making such a big deal out of a name? Edit 1. I keep seeing I don't own the name. This is why I say culture, because back on the island I'm from, my family does actually own the name. You can't name someone that name unless you're in our family. That's why I say I know it's different in the US, but it's not like that in our culture. Edit 2. My grandpa said we are proud to share our culture. We'll teach you our dances and share our food, but we draw the line when you start taking our sacred family names. These names are passed down in our family like Americans would pass down war medals or a very important pocket watch. It's how we connect to family and our ancestors. I would be fine with any other name in my culture as long as it wasn't one of these. These names bring great pride to our families. We track them through what is basically a mural that are decades, if not hundreds of years old. I would explain it like these names were bestowed or given to us by God, for lack of a better analogy. That's what our family names mean to us. My stepsister has no relation to my Polynesian side and has always made fun of my name. When I pulled her aside, I tried to explain to her that the same way she has treated me is how other kids will treat her daughter. I have also been with my stepsister since I was 6. My sister sets me up on a blind date without warning me, so I embarrassed her. I, 25 female, have never been interested in romantic relationships. It just doesn't appeal to me. I'm very busy with grad school and work, and I like being on my own. I have friends and a dog, and that's honestly enough. I'm happy with my life. My family thinks this is weird beyond belief, and the pressure has ramped up now that even my youngest brother has gotten married, and I'm the only one that's left on the shelf. My older sister's husband has been offering to set me up for years because I'm too hot to stay single, whatever that means. I've always tried to refuse politely, but it's wearing thin. I was home visiting my parents this weekend, and my sister invited me out to dinner at a new restaurant. It was an upscale place, so she said to wear something nice. I thought it was just going to be the 3 of us, but there was another guy in the car when they picked me up. He said he was brother-in-law's friend, Joe. Awkward, but not too unusual. We get to the restaurant and sit down, and Joe keeps trying to make conversation with me, with brother-in-law and my sister egging it on, and I finally joke, "Am I on a date or something? What's with all the questions?" And my sister straight up says, "Yes, we thought you just needed a little push, so we decided to set you 2 up." I asked Joe if he knew about this, and he admitted that brother-in-law told him he wanted to set him up on a blind date, but that he was glad he came. So I was the only one that didn't know it was a date. I was pretty mad, but didn't want to cause a scene in the restaurant. So I finished dinner and gave really short responses to questions. "So, you're in a PhD program?" "Yes." "What's that like?" "Busy." And the evening just stayed really uncomfortable and awkward. Joe apologized in the car, and I told him it wasn't his fault, but he probably shouldn't let brother-in-law set him up again, and I wasn't interested in dating anyone. Apparently, he told brother-in-law off in the car about making him look bad so that he didn't even have a chance. My sister is mad because I was rude and embarrassed them when they were just trying to help me out of my shell. My parents think I should have appreciated the gesture and given Joe a chance because you never know, and they want me to apologize. Not the jerk. They knew your boundaries, they broke them. Knowing them at that, I can assume had you been a bit more polite and engaging with him, they would use that as reasoning to set you up more. Your sister and brother-in-law are upset because they looked bad to Joe because they clearly misled him some as well and didn't want to own up to that. Not the jerk. The rude people in this situation are your sister and brother-in-law. Surprise blind date isn't a thing, it's an ambush. Not the jerk. They look bad because they are bad. They look exactly how they are. Their fault, and they deserve to be yelled at by the both of you. They need to respect your choice. Being a romantic is valid. You may need or want to learn how to set stronger boundaries, but that's your choice. Not the jerk. I know I'll get downvoted for this, but y'all gotta hear me out. Men and women have been completing each other for as long as we've been around. A man needs him a good woman, and a woman needs her a good man. It ain't rocket science. I don't know why so many of y'all want to act like you don't need a partner these days. I think it's because you spend too much time on your computers and phones. In life, nothing can fulfill you the way a husband or a wife can. This used to be common sense back in my day, but these days it's like so many of y'all just want to be alone, and it's really sad. Deny it all you want, but in your hearts, you know how much happier you'd be if you found that special someone to complete your life. I found mine over 60 years ago, and we spent the last 60 years being lost in love together. I can't imagine how my life would have been without that man. It's been 2 years since I lost him during lockdown, and not a day goes by that I don't miss him. I share my story with you because just like I tell my granddaughters, It's good to be strong and tough and stand up for yourself. But as for myself, I know I never would have been as happy as I was if I had never given my husband a chance, as y'all like to call it. To tell you the truth, he was the one who gave me a chance. Back then, the girls were the ones who chased the boys. The problem these days is y'all are on your Facebooks and Instagrams so much that you expect a Fabio to sweep you off your feet, and you don't want to give the normal Joes a chance. My grandsons and granddaughters both use those swipe dating apps, and when they're at my house, the girls get constant pop-ups from guys trying to meet them, but my grandsons never get anyone to meet them. It's strange times we're living in, and to be honest, I'm looking forward to the day I leave this old world and go on home to be with the Lord and my dearest Albert. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her sister and brother-in-law? Please let us know. I know everyone's gonna hate that final comment, but I'm still gonna drop an F for Albert in the chat. My son's fiance demands I pay $150,000 for her wedding, but won't let me invite a few guests. I, 54 female, have 3 kids. The one pertaining to this post is 26 male. We'll call him Caleb. Caleb has been with his fiancée, Ashley, who's 26, for 4 years, and they recently got engaged. I've offered to pay for their wedding with 2 stipulations. 1. They use a wedding planner. I feel this is essential due to the size of the event and the amount of money going into it. 2. I have 8 people I'm inviting, older relatives that I'm close with. They both agreed to a wedding planner and said they will look for one that they feel comfortable with. The issue is, Ashley does not want me to be able to invite anyone. Caleb knows the relatives well, but it's not super close with them, and Ashley has only met them a few times. The wedding is going to be very large and a grand affair. She comes from a very large family, and we have a very large family. We're expecting 300 to 400 guests, and I've given them a budget of $150,000. Caleb says he doesn't care, but it makes Ashley uncomfortable since she doesn't know them that well and it's her day. Her family is saying that I'm the jerk, even though they aren't willing to contribute financially. I don't care about any of the other details of their wedding. Whatever they choose is fine as long as I get the 2 things that I want. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. The 8 people are my aunts and uncles. They help me a lot with the kids. We don't come from money. I was in a bad accident that left me paralyzed from the waist down. With the lawsuit money, I made some investments that turned out to be very lucrative. Without their help between watching the kids and financially, I would have been up the creek without a paddle when my kids were younger. Edit 2. I see a lot of people saying that she's a gold digger, but I do not agree with that. Her father is a very well-respected and sought-after criminal defense attorney in our area. Her mom runs an at-home business. Ashley is currently a surgical intern, whereas Caleb is an RN. Her parents paid for all of them to go to college, which is why they're not willing to contribute financially towards a wedding. I just got done having lunch with Caleb to talk to him about the conundrum we're in. He said that he hasn't spoken to her about what they've done for us in the past. He did not realize that it would be such a big deal for them to come and figured because of their age, they would not want to come. Ashley knows the majority of the family really well because I host birthday parties for all 3 kids as well as a 4th of July barbecue every year. My aunts and uncles rarely attend the events that I throw because it's hard for them to get around. I'll update after Caleb gets back to me about their talk. Nope, not the jerk. You're asking for 8 people and offering $150,000. I'm assuming you are not exerting control over anything else. OP. The rest of the wedding is in between them and their wedding planner, unless my opinion is asked for. Not the jerk. Caleb says he doesn't care, but it makes Ashley uncomfortable since she doesn't know them that well. With 400 guests, there's no way she will know every single person well or even at all. It's a power play. It's not her day, it's their day. The groom's opinion matters too. What does she expect? That only her family should get invited? You're being more than generous in the amount you're offering. You have a right to invite his family to show up. Not the jerk. The bride is the definition of entitled. To accept the gift of $150,000 for her wedding, but not allow you to invite 8 relatives? Which would be in the essence about 2% of the guest list. That's ridiculous. Does she allow any plus ones? Or is there an interview or approval process for that? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. I may be old-fashioned, but I believe that the person paying for the party is the person hosting the party, even if the party is your kid's wedding reception. The bride and groom are the guests of honor, But you are the host, and having a small contingent of family that you are choosing to invite doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Not the jerk. Why is your son allowing her to act like this? Also, why is he not seeing this as the red flag that it is? You're giving her $150,000 for her wedding, and she won't allow you to invite a few guests? It breaks my heart to see so many young men these days marrying girls who act like this just because they find them attractive and they don't want to be alone. A guy will hitch his wagon with a spoiled brat who acts like this, then act surprised when she leaves him high and dry, taking everything from him that she can. After my second divorce, they were cheating both times. I gave up on trying to find the right one. I was a millionaire about 20 years ago thanks to my successful career in real estate. These days, I'm lucky to get my darn rent paid. If I had never gotten married and hadn't been used the way I was, I'd be living a good life in my senior years. Instead, I now spend my days delivering for Domino's and hoping for decent tips to supplement my Social Security. I spent everything I had buying big houses and fancy cars, trying to keep my marriages from falling apart. But in the end, it was just never enough for them. Then, when they decide to leave you, you're the one who loses everything. Boo-hoo, poor little you. All I hear from your nonsensical rambling is that both of your marriages failed because you weren't doing what needed to be done. You really want to play the victim when both of your wives cheated on you? We don't cheat for fun. We do it because we aren't being fulfilled at home. I would know, having been in the same predicament myself, due to a husband who wasn't fulfilling his role as the man of the house. Then you really want to complain about your exes getting your house, cars, money, etc.? You claim to have already been a millionaire before you got married. That just shows how easy it is for dudes to make money compared to how hard it is for us. You probably had all that money handed down to you from mommy and dada, so I'm glad the courts did the right thing and gave it to the woman who deserved it for wasting their time with a loser like you. Why are people on Reddit so mean? And in regards to your comment about the story where you ask, why is OP's son allowing this? You're basically admitting that you think he should be a controlling jerk and tell her that her opinion doesn't matter. Newsflash, bud. That's how you become a sad old man like you delivering pizza. You don't control anyone else, no matter how entitled you feel to do so. I guarantee you, your kids went no contact with you if you treated them that way. And you people thought I was mean. Am I the jerk for reporting my classmates for joking that I have pretty privilege? Background. I'm female 23, one of only a few female students in a male-dominated course. Furthermore, I am at a highly prestigious university and I haven't really gotten along with the guys in my course. They are all very competitive and I just don't really enjoy their company. Everything turns into a contest and they definitely take me less seriously. I stopped interacting with them beyond the mere minimum and choose to hang out with other people. Anyway, I did well in our recent exams. I topped 2 out of the 4 exams that we've had so far. Our professor congratulated me during class. I wouldn't have advertised this myself. Ever since then, my interactions with a specific group of male classmates have gotten weird. They're now outright rude and challenge me aggressively in class discussions. We recently had some presentations, and one of them chose to do theirs on, to put it simply, pretty privilege. They specifically pointed to 2 papers that suggested that pretty female students get overscored in assessments. The other guys in the group snickered, and one even gave me a wink. Afterwards, I heard them in the hallway joking that they had experience with that themselves. I've been seeing a PhD student within our department for a month. He has literally nothing to do with our course. Well, we ran into one of my course mates, A, together. The next day in class, his friend, B, asked me if my boyfriend helped me with the exams. He said this intentionally loudly and in front of the professor who heard this. I replied that I don't have a boyfriend because he's not my boyfriend. But then B pointed out that he had run into me with the PhD student, making a point to say his name. The professor knows him. I just replied that we're only friends. They didn't let up. I heard that they discussed this thing in 2 more classes in earshot of the professors. Both times, they suggested I got help for my exams. I wasn't even seeing him then. I didn't confront them, but this has been causing me so much anxiety. Even without the exam accusations, I worked hard to get here, and I don't want to be known among the faculty for my dating life. I raised this issue with my supervisor, without the intention of taking it any further, but I wanted her advice as a woman in academia. She convinced me to let her email their supervisors to remind them of proper conduct, and described their treatment of an unnamed female student. She didn't name me, but they figured it out. They confronted me after class and asked me why I would report their silly joke. Apparently, their supervisors are now very cold towards them and less interested in helping. It's not a formal complaint, only their supervisors know. But one of them, C, said his supervisor writes the reports for his financial aid and scholarship, and it was my fault if he lost out on that. I now feel a bit embarrassed, and this was compounded by a friend telling me that I took it too far because C shouldn't lose out on his scholarship. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Any retaliation should also be reported. They're angling for some big problems if they keep this up. Not the jerk. They know what they're doing because jokesters like this have been doing it for years. Undermine your accomplishments, question your abilities, and then act shocked when you stand up for yourself? I'm happy and somewhat surprised that the faculty and administration are treating this as seriously as it deserves. If their pretty privileged joke made you lose out on a scholarship or caused you to be graded extra hard, they wouldn't give a hoot. They intentionally and repeatedly made this silly joke out loud in front of professors. Not the jerk. Maybe they should have thought about treating you with respect and professionalism before it had to come from a place of authority. I wouldn't mind those bozos losing their scholarships if they think it's appropriate to treat classmates that way. Am I the jerk for telling my grandchildren's father I don't owe his other kids anything? I lost my youngest, Joy, a decade ago. She left behind her husband and 2 kids who are now 15 and 16 years old. My daughter was very close to her dad and me, and when she was at her sickest, she begged us to stay in the kids' lives and make sure they always knew she loved them and that we were her family just as much. She mentioned how worried she was that her husband would encourage them to forget her and would try to replace her for them with a new woman. She asked that we leave anything we might have left to her kids. We assured her we would never let the relationship end and that we would always make sure that they had a good life and would remember her always. 8 months after she passed, her husband moved in with his now wife into their home. She had a baby with someone else and was also expecting a baby with someone. At that point, he did attempt to make it a package deal where we could not see our grandkids without treating his now stepkids as our grandkids, and that we were to treat all future kids of his the same. Otherwise, we would need to be cut out to give our grandkids the chance to form the new family bonds without interference from us. That they deserved the chance to have another mother and only see the new kids as true siblings. Their lawyer told them we would have a case to get grandparents' visitation. We also sought advice on if we were denied access, if we could obtain that. We were told, given our close relationship with the kids, it would be easy to get access through the courts. This led to us getting minimal access, but it was all that was needed because our grandkids were glad to see us and their aunts, uncles, and cousins. In the last few years, my former son-in-law has found himself estranged from his own family, and his wife's family are also no longer in the picture, and he has 6 kids, not counting my grandkids, in his home with no family or support outside of him and his wife. Now that my grandkids are teenagers, they seek to spend more time with us, and their lives have benefited from it. We admittedly spoil them more than some would like because of the circumstances, but they are wonderful kids. Their father confronted me recently about his other kids and how they have no extended family and are suffering seeing their siblings being spoiled. He also said we had already come between our grandkids and their siblings because they're not close and have never asked for their siblings to be part of the extended family they have. He told me I owe it to his kids to step in and give them love and some of the same spoiling. I told him I do not owe his other kids anything and that I would never forgive him for what he attempted to do before. He told me I was cold-hearted and callous. Part of me wonders if he's right because the kids are innocent, and even though I have never considered them family, they're still young and have nothing to do with my former son-in-law's actions. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Who moves in their girlfriend 8 months after their wife passes? I feel bad for the other kids. It sounds like their parents are awful, but that's not your problem. Not the jerk. He never should have tried to force his new kids on you. It's not your fault. All the rest of the family is estranged from them. It's great you guys are willing to do so much for your grandkids and being so supportive for them. Not the jerk. I'm sure your grandkids are happy they have your support. You don't owe your ex-son-in-law anything. He was the one that decided to have more kids. Everyone sucks here. The reason I'm going with this is that the way you justify and word this, you seem to be withholding from these kids primarily as a way to punish their father. It's not that you don't have the time, resources, or energy to give a little bit to these kids. You are choosing not to as a way to make their father suffer more and claim that's honoring your daughter. That's crappy. No one would expect you to treat them the same as your grandkids, but you very well could send some small things back with the grandkids for them sometimes, or even take them out with the other kids a couple times a year for something special, like grandkids' birthdays. These kids have what appears to be a real crappy father and mother, and you have the opportunity to give them a small amount of love and support, and you're choosing not to with the justification of, not my grandkids. Who cares? These kids need all the love they can get, and you could, with very little effort, give some to them, and you choose not to. So yeah, you're the jerk in that respect. Am I the jerk for telling my sister she's the reason our parents are divorcing? About a month ago, my 24 male parents, who are 55 and 57, announced that they were getting divorced. This has been quite a shock to most people, as they seem to be having no issues out of the ordinary. However, I've been the one privy to the information of why they are getting divorced. It's because of my sister, Anne, who's 26. Anne is a deadbeat. She's never worked more than 14 hours a week since getting expelled from college for multiple acts of cheating and code of conduct violations 5 years ago. All she does is sit at home most days watching TV or going over to her loser boyfriend's house. She feels no need to support herself and expects my parents to carry her through life. She's been in therapy since she was 14, but can't keep one for more than a year because she gets dropped as a client due to her lying and inability to show up to appointments. My parents have spent over a decade trying to get some mental issue pinned down for Anne, and all they've gotten is that she's just a lazy narcissist. Last year, my mom decided enough was enough and planned to kick Anne to the curb and wash her hands of her. Dad disagreed, and in the end, the two's marriage got torn apart. I know because both of them have come to me basically admitting that if Anne was not a factor, divorce wouldn't even be a consideration. I don't get along with Anne for a variety of reasons. She's always been a bully and owes me a large sum of money at the moment. The thing that boils my blood, though, is that she's oblivious to the situation between our parents, or she just doesn't care. She had a literal tantrum when the possibility of the house being sold came up because she didn't want to have to move to an apartment with my dad. Last night, I found myself at my parents' house and had the misfortune of talking to Anne. Anne mentioned that she's getting really sick of my mom's melodramatic crap and not just leaving the house to her and my dad. Something struck me at that moment, and I just asked Anne if she really does not care that she's such a selfish, garbage, waste of space human that she's driven her parents to get a divorce. I elaborated and told her the full truth that she is in fact the only reason they're getting a divorce because moms finally realized that there is no hope Anne will ever grow up. The crap storm this caused was massive. Anne acted as if I sold her out to the Romans, and my parents agreed between "she deserves to know" and "we told you that in confidence." Because Anne cannot keep her mouth shut either, the entire extended family has begun to hear too. I want to know, before opinions start forming outside the inner circle, if I'm the jerk here. Nope, not the jerk. Sorry, some tough love is needed with Anne. Doubt she's gonna get her crap together, but she needed to hear it. Not everything is about her. Hopefully she can get her act together and be a contributing member of society, and your parents can get back together with some therapy. Everyone sucks here. Your parents aren't getting a divorce because of Anne. They're getting a divorce because they couldn't find a way to work together on this and find a solution that prioritized their marriage. Each of them decided they would rather not be married anymore than compromise on this. Regardless of which of your parents is right or wrong on that, they should be owning the decision to divorce rather than shifting the blame to Anne. You're the jerk. Anne is the scapegoat for the divorce. If they really wanted to remain married, then they would, and they would work together on the solution. Your mother gave your father an ultimatum and he refused, so your mother responded with a divorce. They made their own choice. Anne's behavior is problematic, but she's not the reason for the divorce. If I had to guess, it's been an ongoing issue where your father neglects your mother's feelings and/or your mom pushes your dad into doing things he isn't comfortable with. They clearly don't know how to work together. You're the jerk 100%. Not saying your sister doesn't deserve tough love, she absolutely does, but only 2 people decided to get divorced and she's not one of them. They chose not to work out their differences. They chose not to be unified. Your sister had nothing to do with it. Couples deal with similar situations without divorce all the time. It's never the kid's fault for the divorce. No, we're not here to eat. We're producing content right now. I work in a really cute restaurant that's popular with the blogger crowd. Our decor is pretty, our food is pretty, and our cocktails are pretty. The restaurant as a whole is quite Instagrammable. Unfortunately, we occasionally get influencers who think being present on Instagram, TikTok, etc. makes them the main character of the world, who thinks the rotation of the earth hinges on them, continuing to upload pictures of themselves in cute clothes. An event last month that I'm still angry about. A group of 5 girls came into our restaurant, and for some reason, they decide that it's the perfect place to have a photo shoot and a catwalk. Literally, we have girls who start strutting up and down the aisles between tables and filming each other. We had guest complaints because most people do not feel comfortable being filmed at their tables by random women in street clothes, so the manager comes out to check in with the ladies. At this point, they've decided to seat themselves at a table, after ignoring the host of course, and our manager asks if they're being attended to by a server yet. One of the girls has the gall to say, "We're not here to eat, we're here producing content for our channels." So, of course, the manager tells them they'll need to leave, as our tables are reserved for guests only. They decide to stay and keep photographing each other. Our host decides to interfere before our manager comes back and tells the girls that they do need to leave when asked, or our manager might call security to have them escorted out, which is a pretty sensible thing to me, right? Well, if you're an entitled influencer, apparently it's the worst thing in the world. Almost immediately after leaving, the girl actually uploads a whole testimony to Instagram, crying and saying that she and her girls discovered a cute restaurant, but the manager decided to kick them out for taking photos and stealing content, and that our manager called security on them without warning, which shows that our manager was dangerous, and that our manager needs a culture class after putting them in danger. And on top of that, it's Black History Month. The gall and entitlement gets me. You can't come into a restaurant, start filming other people without their permission, sit at a table without buying anything, and then refuse to leave when asked. You're making other people uncomfortable, inconveniencing guests who had a reservation, and taking money out of the pocket of the server whose table you're sitting at. Shaking my head. Dealership said sue, so I did. This all started December of last year and just finished last week. So I bought a car from one of those buy here and pay here places. I love the car. It's a Mazda 5 from 2014, basically the smallest minivan I've ever seen. Well, on Christmas, we drove to some family for dinner and celebration. When we went to leave, the car wouldn't start. We checked everything and found out the horn wasn't even connected. Any fuse that wasn't absolutely needed was simply missing, and the tires were the original tires. Beyond that, we hooked up to the computer and it read several errors, but the one getting in the way was the immobilizer. I had never known the van had one. I called AAA and set up towing, but because we were in the middle of nowhere, AAA couldn't get a tow truck to us under our membership, free. So we had to call a tow truck and then submit the bill to AAA after the fact. So family let us borrow their car and the van was towed to a shop. A few days later, and the shop calls and tells us what's wrong. I live in Texas, a single-party consent state, and I record all of my calls thanks to an app on my phone. The long list of car issues isn't important. The point of this van is a basic work van. The only issue they found stopping it from running is the immobilizer inactive, and they can't touch it without talking to the dealer. I three-way called the dealership and the shop, and we talked for 17.34 minutes during this call, and the dealership acknowledged we were not behind and everything should be working unless it malfunctioned. The dealership also gave permission for the shop to bypass it and we would be reimbursed the towing and repairs. All the shop needed to do to get the van running was bypass the immobilizer, and a couple days later we picked up the van and paid the bill. Both bills came to just under $300 and we started calling the dealership. The first few conversations go well and the phone rep seemed interested in helping, but mostly I end up getting tossed around from department to department and then disconnected. That went on for some time, and I of course took to Reddit to find out options. As almost always happens, Reddit users know some crazy facts and how to get stuff done. So I followed their advice and kept calling, eventually getting to a supervisor, and the first supervisor said he'd get it taken care of, and we ended the call. 2 more days go by and nothing is heard. So I call back, get tossed around, and then get another manager who says, "We are not responsible for mechanical issues and hang-ups." I call back, now quite annoyed, and eventually get back to the same manager. I explain I have all the information and call recordings, including the repair shop three-way call. He cuts me off and says, "What? Are you going to take us to court over $296.47? I don't think so, but go ahead and sue. We will win, and if that small amount is worth suing to you, you probably don't have the resources to actually sue." This, of course, made me quite upset, so off to a justice of the peace and explained what's happened. They give us a small claims form and explain the process. We can fill it out and pay for a constable to serve the dealership, or fill out the paper and take it to the dealership unfiled and explain everything to a manager in person. We chose the cheaper route because the manager on the phone was right. We didn't have the money to have it served, only filed. So we transcribed the phone calls, found out how to fill out the paper. The hardest part was finding the agent. We didn't know what that meant, but we again turned to Reddit and learned. We gathered the bills and all the paperwork and made our way to the dealership's payment center. I wait in line and see the name of the manager is the same as the manager on the phone that told me to sue. I wait in line, and when it's my turn, I ask to talk to John, and he comes over and sits across from me. After making introductions, and I confirm it's the same guy, I start to explain the situation again. As I'm explaining, I see when he recalls talking to me on the phone. He starts to dismiss me, and I explain that he asked me to sue, and I'm here with all my evidence and the unfixed suit, giving him one final chance. He starts to look over the papers and asked if I still had the recordings. I said yes, I could email him a copy. We sit and talk for about an hour as he reads, then I said with a slight aggravated tone, if something isn't done today, not only am I going to head right back to the courthouse and file, as well as tack on as much for emotional distress and whatever else the clerk hinted at. The clerk was very open-mouthed with ideas, as well as send a copy of everything to every email on the corporate website. At this, our conversation drew the attention of a woman in a power suit who rushes over for a recap. I find out she's John's boss's boss's boss, and she's none too happy about how far things have gone. She assured me that all would be made right and gave me her cell number and email. I gave her the papers and left. The next Monday at 8 a.m., I got a call asking if credit being applied to the account would be acceptable. I say yes, and she explains they will credit $500 to the account as payments. The payments are only $155 every 2 weeks. I agree, and we talk for a few minutes. When I ask why it took this much just to get things done, she laughed and said, "It shouldn't have, and certain people are no longer employed at this company." Well, today was Wednesday, and the day of the payment, but when I went to make the payment, it was already done. Thank you, power suit lady. Karen keeps stealing from my garage, so I got her arrested. So this story started about a year ago, when I noticed some of my gardening tools were missing from my garage. At first, I thought I must have misplaced them, but after looking around the garage a bit more, I realized that they were actually gone. I asked my wife if she had moved them somewhere else, but she had no idea what I was talking about. That's when I knew something was fishy. A few days later, I caught my neighbor, who we'll call Karen, red-handed. I had been working in my garden when I heard some rustling in the garage. I went to investigate, and there she was, rummaging through my tool collection. When I asked her what she was doing, she just smiled sheepishly and said, "Oh, I was just borrowing a shovel. I didn't think you'd mind." To be honest, at first, I didn't really mind that she was using my tools. After all, we were neighbors, and it seemed like a small thing to get worked up about. But then it started happening more and more frequently. Every time I turned my back, Karen would sneak into my garage and take whatever she wanted. It got to the point where I couldn't find my tools when I needed them, and it was becoming a huge inconvenience having to ask her over and over again to give me back whatever she had taken. I tried talking to Karen about it several times, but she always just apologized and said she wouldn't do it again. Of course, a few days later, I would catch her in the act once again. It was starting to feel like a game of cat and mouse. That's when I decided enough was enough. I knew I needed to take matters into my own hands or she would never stop. I couldn't just let Karen keep taking advantage of me like this. So I decided to put up some security cameras in my garage to catch her in the act. I'll never forget the feeling of satisfaction I had when I reviewed the footage for the first time. There was Karen, sneaking into my garage like she owned the place, taking whatever she pleased. I couldn't believe she had been so brazen about it. But even with the evidence right in front of me, I was still hesitant to take legal action. I'm very non-confrontational and didn't want to make things awkward with my neighbor and her family. But then, one day, I went to use my tools and I realized that not only were they missing, but Karen had also taken my pressure washer. Darn thing cost about $300. That was the last straw. I called the police and filed a report, providing them with the footage from my camera as evidence. The whole process was surprisingly straightforward, and I felt a sense of relief knowing that I had finally put an end to Karen's stealing. Of course, Karen was less than pleased with the outcome. She pleaded with me to drop the charges, saying that she had just been borrowing the tools and didn't mean any harm, but I wasn't buying it. I had given her plenty of chances to do the right thing, and she had chosen to ignore them time and time again. In the end, Karen was arrested, charged with theft, and had to return all of my tools that she had borrowed. She has a court date coming up next week, and I'm hoping she'll face some serious punishment for stealing so much of my stuff. I may have lost a neighbor, but at least I got my tools back. Neighbors like this are the worst. I had a neighbor at my old house who used to swipe anything he could get his hands on. Decorative plants, birdhouses, tools, anything. Eventually, we all found out that he had a compulsive stealing disorder. His sister claimed that he didn't even know what he was doing or why he was doing it. It was such a relief when we moved and I didn't have to deal with Mr. Sticky Fingers anymore. Am I the jerk for not watching my nephew during a flight delay? Ray, 25 female, and I, 23 female, grew up in New York City. Our parents own a vacation home. When I moved out, they decided to move there permanently. They've only been back once since I recently decided to visit them. Mom and Ray were talking and my plans came up. She called and asked why I didn't tell her I was planning to go to Cali. I said it had nothing to do with her, so why would I have to tell her anything? She said it made no sense for us to do separate trips when we could just go together. I said she's acting extremely entitled to something she had no part in, and I'm not obligated to include her in every plan I make. She said she just wants our parents to meet her son. I said he's like 5 months. You've had plenty of time to take him if it was important. Then she cried to Mom. Ma said it was a good idea. I said if Ray cared so much, she would have planned to see them on her own. She told me she really needs this. I told Ray if she comes, she can't ask me for jack. I'm not helping with her kid. Act like I'm not even there. She agreed. The day came and our connecting flight was delayed, so we had to stay the night. I was trying to fall asleep. She asked me if I was really going to sleep. I was annoyed. I said, if you leave me alone. Later, she asked me to watch the baby. I said, just hold him and go to sleep. She was scared someone would snatch him while she slept. I said she sounds crazy and no one wants her kid. She said she was exhausted and had been drinking energy drinks all night, but she was crashing and tried to put him in my arms again. I said, this is exactly why you should have just stayed at home. I told you from the jump, I'm not doing crap. You already forced your way here, now you're just gonna have to figure it out. She said, seriously? I'm exhausted. I can barely even keep my eyes open. I said, then go to sleep, and closed my eyes. She knew what the terms were. We made it there, but later Mom asked if she really raised me to be so cold towards my sister. She told me she had broken down and had a mental meltdown. I said I love my sister, but she should grow up and stop being so dramatic about a situation she put herself in. She said it wouldn't have hurt me to help her even just a little. I told her I didn't help her make the baby, and she should have known something could go wrong when traveling. We got back a week ago and haven't spoken to each other at all. But she texted me today how hurt she was, and she feels like I don't care about her or my nephew at all. I told her she knew what she was getting into when she begged to come and imposed on my trip. She said she thought I would have changed my mind when I realized we would have to sleep in the airport and that she would have done it for me. I said, your kid, your responsibility. I might be willing to just apologize to shut her up if people say I am the jerk. You're not obligated to include your sister in your travel plans, although I do think that, in theory, it sounds like a nice idea to visit your parents together. Nothing wrong with a little family get-together. In reality, though, you sound terribly cold like your mother said. Do you hate your sister? What about your nephew? You sound like you do. It wouldn't hurt you to be a tiny bit helpful, especially in extenuating circumstances. What's your problem? If that's how you were going to act, your answer should have been a hard no when your sister asked to tag along. Had she known that's how you were going to act, I'm certain she wouldn't have asked. You took a great opportunity to spend quality time with your sister and her sweet baby, and you wasted it. You're the jerk. You can be technically correct and still be morally wrong. Everyone sucks here. your sister for latching onto your trip and forcing you into the situation in the first place, and you for the absolute callousness with which you regard your sister and your nephew. In extenuating circumstances like a flight delay, all it needs is a little give and take to make everyone's experience a lot easier. I would never wish for anyone to have you as a relative. You seem to treat relationships as purely rules-based zero-sum games. What an awful way to live. Let's hope you never find yourself in a situation where you need someone else's help. Not the jerk. To recap, Ray purposefully waited until you planned a trip to take hers so she could use you for a babysitter. Wanted you to stay awake and watch her kid so she could sleep. Went back on her word not to force you to babysit. Cried to mommy when you didn't let yourself be manipulated. Ray sounds more childish and exhausting to deal with than her toddler. You're the one who deserves an apology. Geez, count on Reddit parenting posts to take the human out of humanity. I'll agree that Ray forced herself on the trip, but outside of that, it's not like she asked her to babysit so she could go out for dinner. There were extenuating circumstances. These Reddit people really love saying extenuating, don't they? That led to her asking for help. You cannot fall asleep while holding a 5-month-old infant. You cannot leave a 5-month-old on the floor while you sleep because they could be stolen. She was asking her sister to hold her baby for an hour so she wouldn't accidentally pass out and accidentally drop them. Let's not pretend she was asking to go out to the bars. Customer is always right, right? So I work as a minimum wage cashier at a discount store. I see a lot of people in a day, especially people who know how to do my job better than me due to their lack of experience and profound understanding that my job is the easiest in the world. Now I always shut that crap down in the classic corporate happy public service employee way. Well, actually, it makes it a little easier this way, but thank you so much for helping. Like I'm talking a toddler down from an upcoming tantrum, but I don't leave room for arguing. It's almost like I'm playing a character, honestly. It works for me. But I never just let someone do something stupid, like letting them walk out with a bag too heavy without double bagging it, or letting them leave putting their receipt in the bag if it looks like they might want to return it. But not today. It's Saturday, so it's busy. All day, as I would finally get a minute to get my other work done, someone would come up taking forever to consider the impulse buys while I'm stuck waiting for them at the register getting nothing done. This woman did that, but twice. She got up there, pondered for a minute, got a line behind her, decided to go look at something else. I'm stuck with this line till just before she gets back and ponders again before finally getting to me. She's your average-looking middle-aged soccer mom, but already she's getting on my nerves. But hey, it's Saturday. Every customer gets on my nerves, so whatever. She's got a lot of larger but lightweight items with some smaller items, like bags of candy and socks. So I'm getting half of it in one large bag, half of it in another large bag. So I go to get the second bag, handing her the first one, when she goes, "No, I don't want a lot of bags. You can fit the rest in there, it's fine. You should ask before getting more bags. It's your job to do things how the customers want, and asking. Otherwise, you should just know to do one bag if you can. It's wasteful. I only want one bag." And I thought to myself, wow, it sounds like she's never done retail a day in her life. She must know what she's doing. Now it's also worth noting she had a few heavier items. Not many, but a few. There were glass jars of sauces with lots of pigment and staining properties. It's also worth mentioning that she was getting some chips that came in bags with pointy, sharper edges that eat bags for breakfast. The bag gets too heavy and they press into the sides at any angle and that bag is toast. It's also worth mentioning she was getting several white clothes made of very stainable material. Nice clothes. She said they were for an important party she had to go to that night. Bragging. Normally I would double bag, which would keep the sharp corners in check, but she was right. She only wanted one bag, so that must be all she needs. So I get the glass jars in with the clothes nestled in there nicely, spaced out to where they wouldn't hit each other with clothes in between them, and the bags on top spread around the top, so it was easier to lift the bag, just like she wanted. That darn bag was already looking like it would bust wide open at any second when she took it from the counter. Luckily, a line hadn't formed behind her yet. Just someone looking at the impulse buys, so I couldn't really step away, but nothing to do but watch where I had a clear view of the parking lot. I watched as she struggled out of the two front doors, no automatic. Got a quarter of the way to her car when the bag busts. Glass and sauce everywhere. Sad, she had like $15 worth, about 5 jars. She struggled to force them back into the bag, hoping she could at least pile them in her arms with the bag holding it together, trying not to cut herself on the glass which she had wrapped up. It broke some more. She tried to salvage it and balance it back up. Failed, gave up, grabbed as much of an armful as she could. Had to take like 5 trips. Her blouse and pants ruined. Maybe after over a year and a half of cashiering nearly every day, I know what I'm doing. Shocker. You don't really know what you're doing because your pride and arrogance prevent you from learning how to properly deal with people. You failed as a bagger to pack her things up securely and prevent what happened. You allowed this ignorant, foolish person to dictate to you how you would do your work. You wimped out. A true professional would have known how to handle this customer to ensure she made it to her car safely with her purchases intact. OP. Yes, and I normally do that, but not today. Today, I decided she won herself a stupid prize, so she got her way. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my family without evidence of a written, emailed, or texted agreement? My family likes to assume I'll do whatever they want. I got a call at work once asking why I wasn't at the airport to pick up my brother-in-law. Apparently, they asked me to pick him up a few months ago. I asked them if they could provide me with an email or text where they told me the date, time, or flight number. Nope. That was the last straw. My mom and dad gave me crap and tried to make me pay for his Uber. So I sent my entire family an email followed up by a text. I would not be doing anything for any of them unless they had written confirmation that I had agreed to do so. My dad has been awesome about it. He had to have cataract surgery last week. We spoke about it a month ago. He then followed up with an email with the time, date, and location of the appointment. He also asked me to confirm that I had agreed to take him and pick him up. Easy peasy. The rest of them have been a pain in the butt. My mom asked me if I could watch her and my stepdad's dogs while they were out of town. I said yes, just send me the information about your trip at least a month in advance so I can make sure to rearrange my plans. I got no further information. Last weekend, my boyfriend wanted to go to Banff, so we went. My mom called me on Thursday to ask where I was. I told her that I was in Banff. It became a huge deal because she was leaving Friday morning. Oops. I told her that I hadn't made any arrangements for the dogs since she never told me when she needed them watched. She said I was being a jerk and that it had slipped her mind. I told her I would be back on Monday night and that she could kennel them or leave them with my sister until then. She said not to bother. She ended up just leaving them with my sister. My sister's upset with me, so I forwarded her a screenshot of the text where I agreed to watch the dogs as long as I got the requested information. I told her I would cut my trip short immediately if she could get my mom to show me when she sent me the information. I got a call from my mother telling me I was being difficult and that if I agree to do something, I need to follow through. I could provide dozens of examples of my family asking me for a favor and then giving me all the information I need to do it. But I could easily show you half a dozen times where they either claim that I agreed to do something but cannot provide proof, or where they expect me to change my plans last minute because they forgot to tell me everything I needed to know. I'm not going to change. If my 76-year-old dad can bend his neck to tell me everything I need to know to help him out, so can everyone else. Not the jerk. If your family wants a favor from you, then they need to give you all the information you need to follow through. I think that your solution is reasonable. Not the jerk, but start insisting on having all the details before saying yes or no. Mom, can you watch my dogs? You. Send me all the details and I'll check my schedule and let you know. Why don't you start acting like a human and give us a room? It's not my fault you booked through a third party like an idiot. A family comes in late that night, probably around 11:30 p.m. Mom, dad, and their 2 kids, probably around 5 or 6. Nothing out of the ordinary. They booked a prepaid, non-refundable reservation through a third party. Ugh, whatever. Checked them in, and they went up to their room. They had booked a suite, which is a queen bed and a pull-out sofa bed. 20 minutes later, they all come back down with their crap and say that that's not the type of room they booked. They booked a room with 2 queen beds. I said, sorry, that's what came through on the reservation, and I can't change anything on a prepaid, non-refundable reservation. They'd have to take it up with the company they had booked it through. The lady said she needed 2 beds. I'm supposed to have 2 beds. 2? There are 4 people here. Use your common sense. Why would you put 4 people in a room that only has 1 bed? Ma'am, that's not how it works. I didn't make your reservation. I didn't pick the room type, and I can't change anything. You booked through a third party, so you need to fix this with a third party.
This isn't my fault. I need 2 beds. How are we all supposed to sleep in a room with only 1 bed?
Well, it certainly isn't my fault, and the room does have 2 beds, a queen bed and a pull-out sofa bed.
That doesn't count. We need 2 beds. How do you suggest we all sleep in a room with 1 bed and a sofa bed?
That's up to you. I can even get you a rollaway bed if you want.
That's not what I reserved.
You'd have to take that up with the OTA. Lady, there are seriously 2 beds in the room. Have the kids sleep on the sofa bed. They're kids. They don't care where they sleep, and they'd love getting to sleep on the sofa bed. It's an adventure for them. Of course, the woman was upset with me, because why not? Why not yell at the front desk associate for a mess up that they didn't make? The man showed me the confirmation email they got for the room, and it confirmed that they booked a suite. Surprise, surprise. Man calls the OTA rep and talks for a solid half hour before coming back over to the desk and telling me that the third party upgraded them from a double queen room to a suite without notice. Nah, I don't know what BS they're telling you, but your confirmation email very clearly listed the room as a suite at the time you made the reservation. More talking on the phone, kids are asleep in the lobby chairs, but no, they can't sleep anywhere other than an actual bed. Mom is huffing and rolling her eyes and pacing. Dude is on the phone trying to get the room changed. OTA has already called me twice and asked me to change their room type, even though I literally can't. What's up with OTAs always asking me to do their job? Shaking my darn head. You made the reservation, you fix it. I can't do anything from here. Third party doesn't want to do anything. They're getting more money from a suite than from a double room and apparently don't want to give it up. I'd already told the man that his best bet was to make a reservation on the spot and deal with a third party later on. I was on audit shift, so I was just chilling and doing my work while these people sat in my lobby. Hey, not my problem. At one point, I heard the lady say that she was never using that OTA again. She was using another OTA in the future instead. Bruh, how about you don't book with an OTA at all and save us all the trouble? It's been over an hour. I don't care. It's not like I have to waste my time sitting on the phone trying to fix a mistake I didn't make. It's their time, not mine. The man is still on the phone, but the lady storms up to the desk and says,
We've been sitting here for over an hour. My kids are exhausted. Mistakes get made, things get messed up sometimes. But sooner or later, you'll have to act like a human. So why don't you start acting like a human and give us a room?
Ma'am, I'm sorry you're so upset about this. I can give you a rollaway bed and that's it. If you don't want it, you're welcome to leave and find another place to stay. And they took the rollaway bed. I brought it up to their room and they had me push it inside. Whatever, the kids were sleeping. The room was dark, and this lady starts telling me that she doesn't want to leave a bad review because I was so polite, but she would if my manager didn't discount the price or refund her. Jerk, leave a bad review then. I don't give a hoot. All that, and still she doesn't understand how an OTA works. I'm shocked at the amount of people who use OTAs without knowing how they work. Edit. Wow, this has drawn in a lot of fans of OTAs. Didn't know so many of you lurked here, waiting to kiss OTA whenever someone mentions them. If you want to defend an OTA, go get a job at a hotel and learn how they work. Edit 2. My head hurts, and I can't deal with all the ignorant jerks who act like I can just break the contract between a franchise owner and a third-party company. I'm a front desk agent. Neither I nor my managers have control over this, and telling me that we do doesn't make it true. If you don't work at a hotel, then shut up with your uneducated opinions. Don't make accusations about things you clearly don't understand. And to those who are telling me to quit, yeah, not everyone is an entitled rich jerk whose mommy pays their bills. Some people don't have the luxury to quit on the spot. I like my job, but third parties suck, and so does anyone who defends them. In short, go forget yourselves, because I'm not dealing with any more BS. OTA kissers and jerk superiority complex jerks will be blocked and ignored. Am I the jerk for saying yes to my boyfriend's proposal? So basically, I'm 24, non-binary. My boyfriend, fiance, is 25, male. My sister is 26, female, and I don't know the ages of most of her friends, but roughly the same age. Now, my sister and my boyfriend/fiance do not get along well. I don't really know what happened. I think my sister is just upset because she has issues with commitment, and she dated him in their high school. I went to a different high school. Then she cheated on him, and she was upset that he broke up with her. I met him in college and didn't know it was him. Now, what happened is, last week it was my sister's birthday. She was always into stupidly lavish things. We both are. So she threw a big birthday party at a venue in the forest. Me and my boyfriend/fiance were both invited. We've been dating for a few years, and he's never been invited to one of my sister's birthday parties before, so we were both thrilled at this development. At the party, my sister was busy opening all of her presents, then eating cake, both of which we were there for. Afterward, my sister started talking to her friends, and the guests started to explore the area. It was stunning. Me and my boyfriend were a little bit away when we found a little clearing. We were still pretty close to the venue, but I think it was pretty private. My boyfriend thought so too. He got down on one knee and proposed. He didn't have a ring, he had one at home though, but he had woven a ring out of grass while we were walking. We are both very fidgety. So he put that on my finger and I said yes. Apparently it wasn't as private as I thought, because when we got back to the venue after taking a selfie and scheduling a post for a few hours after the party was scheduled to end, I was bombarded by a shower of congratulations. Turns out my sister's friend, Lisa, saw my boyfriend propose and then came back to the venue and told everyone. I figured that I could show them the ring and tell this story and then move on from that and back to my sister. While I was being congratulated, another girl, one of my sister's best friends, came up to me, asked to see the ring, and told me that, wow, he even skimped out on a ring. He couldn't plan his own proposal or get you a nice ring. I was upset because I wasn't even planning to tell anyone. If someone noticed the ring, I would tell them, but I wasn't going to announce it to the world or do it in public where everyone could see us. We left immediately afterwards, and my entire family has been blowing up my phone, calling me an attention-seeking jerk, and that I shouldn't have done that to my sister. I'm worried I might be a jerk because it was my sister's birthday, and if I said no, maybe she wouldn't have been upset about my boyfriend proposing. You're the jerk, but mostly your fiance is, especially since he dated your sister in high school. Even though we don't know how serious, maybe her first. It was her birthday party. And also, sorry, but you say you don't know why they don't get along. Because they have a past together of them dating, and how I understand it, her cheating on him? You're the jerk. You're the jerk, but mostly your boyfriend is 100% the jerk. I can't believe he thought it would be appropriate to propose at your sister's event. I can't believe you didn't shut it down due to the clear disrespect he's showing to your sister. Also to you, he's disrespecting you here too. Does it not bother you that his proposal, which should have been your moment, something just between the two of you, is now intertwined with his ex-girlfriend? It seems like he did that on purpose to me. You don't spontaneously propose at your ex-girlfriend's birthday party. That takes a great deal of spite. It's beyond the realm of being accidentally clueless. It looks like he used your moment, your proposal, as a way to say forget you to his ex-girlfriend. There's a lot of things you could have done here. People of Reddit, stop getting engaged at other people's events. Unless you've explicitly spoken to the host of the event and received enthusiastic consent, it's just tacky. Yeah, your sister's friend sucks for telling people, but there shouldn't have been anything to tell. Someone with social awareness wouldn't have weaved an engagement ring out of grass to propose to their ex-girlfriend's sister at her own birthday party. You're the jerk by proxy because yeah, he's the primary jerk, but you should have known it wasn't an appropriate time or place either. I'd say everyone sucks here, but your sister's only presence in the story is the olive branch she extended by inviting your boyfriend to come with you in the first place. Am I the jerk for refusing to change the litter box every day as it's a waste of time? I'm 35, male. My girlfriend, Abby, who's 32, of 6 months, has 2 cats. A week ago, she broke her leg and arm while climbing a climbing wall. I offered to help her with chores, we don't live together, and that I'd stay with her while she can't do much. She didn't want to accept, saying it's too much work, but I insisted. Thought it would be a great trial run to potentially living together in the future. We haven't talked about that yet. Like I said, she has 2 cats. Her cats don't go outside, and she has carpets in her flat. She has 3 litter boxes. She instructed me that they need to be scooped daily or wiped down on the sides with pet wipes, and she said carpets need daily hoovering with cats. At first, I didn't mind, but it quickly got annoying. I tried talking to her about this, suggesting that 3 litter boxes was too many, that it can be cleaned every few days, etc. I tried to get her to see that she was being unreasonable and over the top, but she wouldn't budge, always finding an excuse on why she needs to do it that way. One day, I was about to scoop the litter box and there was just one scoop. I told her that's ridiculous. It's just one scoop. It can stay there until the next day. She asked if I was at least going to hoover, and I said no. There's only some fur on the ground and a few pieces of litter. It'll be fine until the next day. She got annoyed with me. The next day, she told me that her mother was coming to stay with her and that I had to leave, and she'd call me later to chat. Honestly, I was upset, and we argued, and she called me a selfish jerk. She still hasn't called me, and my mates think I should have waited with changes until we were living together because she couldn't dismiss my point of view then. I don't know. I kind of feel bad. I mean, she couldn't really do it herself. Was I the jerk? Should I call first and apologize? She still hasn't called me. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. As a cat owner, I'll explain something. Cats really hate dirty cat boxes. If they get too dirty, the cats will go somewhere else. And she's right about scooping boxes multiple times a day. The longer you wait, not only do the boxes get dirtier, but the scoopable litter makes a larger clump, which wastes it. This also tends to toss more dust into the air, which is bad for everyone's breathing. Your response? I should have waited until we lived together. Then she couldn't dismiss my opinion. That's world-class jerk material right there. Her cats are basically her kids. To be fair, this was an excellent trial run. She learned you really don't want to care for her cats, her kids. So hopefully she dumped you. And you learned a valuable lesson. You don't want to be with a woman who has cats. Hunt frogs on our farm? Have fun in prison. This is another story about Pops, my grandfather, and how he got some sweet, sweet revenge on squatters and poachers. This goes way back to the 90s, to be exact, 1998. I was 10 years old. My farm back then was Pop's family farm. It's way up north in Ontario. My farm is not a small farm in the area. It's the biggest plot of land. Not only that, it has the most workable farmland. There's about 80 acres of good workable farmland that's including pastures and another 120 acres of dense forest and marshland. It's in northern Ontario. Back in the 90s, northern Ontario had a breakout of this type of moth. They would spin silk high in the trees. Really, they caused no harm other than a nuisance, but the government had the great idea to crop dust the forests on Ontario, causing an ecological disaster. With the loss of the moths and the chemicals in the water, a type of frog was nearly wiped out. We called them leopard frogs. They're green with these big black spots on them. After that, they were put on the endangered species list. The back end of my property runs off into a small marshland and into the lake, and back in the 90s, Pops was having a problem with poachers. They were camping in the back area, hunting out of season, and eating turtles out of the marsh, and just messing up the property. Back in the day, that forest was my playground. I know that area like the back of my hand, but unfortunately, I had a run-in with the poachers. So of course, I went out there with my Pops and our local lawman, but they had packed up and were gone before we got there. Unfortunately, they returned the week after. Pops tried to find them with the lawman several times, but with no luck. Now here's where all the information from the start comes into play. Pops, as hard as he tried, wanted them gone, but it wasn't working. Pops was also a fisherman, and his favorite bait were bones, other than the leopard frog. But because they made it on the endangered species list, the use was outright banned. Pops, being the responsible fisherman and generally caring about the land, figured, oh well, now's the time to get two birds with one stone. He approached the Canadian Fishery and Game Wardens and through a lot of work got in touch with an ecological survey team who decided that our little marsh was the perfect place for a spawning pool to raise little leopard frogs. And that's what happened. The back area where our marsh was fenced in, and they started bringing tadpoles to brood in our marsh. Not only that, the poachers' hunting ground happened to fall in the protected zone. Once the work happened, it took a full year for the poachers to return. But Pops had a weapon now, his phone. Once he could hear that familiar sound of shots going off, where no fire should be made, a single phone call to the game warden. They had over a dozen wardens up there in less than an hour, and the poachers were caught. Not only were they caught with the carcass of a bear and other animals, they were found with buckets and buckets of our little leopard frogs. They were caught, but not only did they hunt without a license, they also poached an endangered species to be used as an illegal bait. From what we learned through the locals, they did 2 years in big-time prison, all because Pops cared about the little froggies. Oh yeah, over 5 million of the frogs were raised on that marsh over 10 years, being released throughout marshes and forests in Ontario. You would have a hard time finding a leopard frog across Ontario that was not somehow related to a frog that came out of my little marsh. My sister is naming her baby Crystal. I told her what a dumb idea that is, and now she's furious with me. Okay, so just a little extra context because this topic is incredibly touchy for me. I'm a man who was given a woman's name at birth. A good example is naming your son Alice. It's not what my name was, but it's close. My parents are hippies and gave their oldest son a girl's name to stick it to the man, and I will never forgive them for it. That name caused me to be bullied and damaged my professional life in ways I can't even describe. My sister is pregnant with her first, a girl. She and her husband are ecstatic. It just sucks that she inherited my parents' stupid propensity to see their kids as fashion statements. Last night, she revealed to the family the name of her daughter. It's Crystal. She wants to name her daughter Crystal. Confused, the name is actually pronounced Crystal. I already don't like that name, but it's at least appropriate. I was not surprised to learn that my mom helped her come up with the name. When she told me, I told her that it was a terrible idea. If she wants to name her baby Crystal, then name her that. She tried to explain to me why the X's are there, and I just told her that it doesn't matter. She's naming a human, not a dog. I don't care what kind of fashion statement she's trying to make. This is a person who will have to live with that name for the rest of their life. She and my mom brushed me off as just complaining because I was never able to accept my name. I told my sister she was either being selfish, stupid, or an incredibly strong combination of the two if she thinks her daughter will want a stupid name like Crystal. We got into an argument, and I told her I already see her and her husband as crappy parents for using their kid to be off-brand with her name, and left right after that. My sister's not taking it well, and my mom is furious with me. I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh. I will not change my opinion on that incredibly stupid name, but I'm wondering if branding her as a bad parent was too far. I'm going to get downvoted, but as someone who changed their name the moment they turned 18, you're right. She is stupid, not the jerk. It's a horrendous name that will do nothing but get the kid bullied. It's not unique or cute. Her kid is not an accessory. Not the jerk. Let's get one thing straight here. Crystal is not, will not be, and shouldn't be assumed to be pronounced Crystal. Real life is not algebra class. The letter X is not a placeholder for whatever sound they think should be there. Newsflash, that's what letters are for. Not the jerk. I try to imagine how many people she's going to have to explain to how to spell her name after she finally learns it herself. It's an unnecessary stress that the parents want to add to the kid just because they think they're cool, unique, and they wrongly assume that people will be jealous of their bright idea. And you are the best possible witness of what a bad choice of name this will be. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know.
I'm so glad my parents weren't hippies.
Am I the jerk for ordering food when my kids go to sleep so I don't have to share? Occasionally, when my 4 kids go to bed, I'll order myself a little something from Uber Eats or DoorDash after a hard day so I don't have to share with the kiddos. Usually, since I'm always the first one to wake up, I'll put the packing beside the indoor trash can and take it out to the outdoor trash can in the morning. My kids ended up waking up first that morning, and they saw the takeout food packaging and ended up waking me up, asking me what I ate and if they could have some of it. I told them there was none left and I ate it all last night. Thought that would be the end of it, but after I dropped them off at their dad's for the week, my kids stay at their dad's house 1 week out of the month rather than just doing weekends. My kid's father ended up spamming my phone with text messages accusing me of misappropriating my kid's funds that he sends every month. My kid's father gives me $100 for each kid a month, which is about $400 a month when it comes to it. It isn't much, but I'm fine with it because he usually makes up for it by buying the kids what they need when an issue arises. FYI, nothing is court-ordered. I have a job as a daycare worker and use my own money I make myself to buy Uber Eats or DoorDash food. He also accused me of being a bad mother because I'd rather order food for just myself without thinking of my kids who were with me at the time, and that I should have just waited until they were with him for the night. I had a really bad day that day, and I just wanted to do something to cheer myself up, and sometimes food does the trick for me. If I were to order something for everyone, it would have cost a whole lot of money that I wasn't interested in spending. And if I were to share, by the time my food got back to me, it would have just been the food wrapper. So, do y'all think I'm the jerk? Don't like 100% of parents hide in their closet to eat M&Ms because they don't want to share the one selfish treat they got that week? This dude needs to shut up and pay more support. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. It's a treat you get for yourself. And $400 a month for 4 kids is nothing. Amen. I got $400 per month for 1 kid starting in 2004 when we divorced. The kid was 6, and I got a cost of living increase each year. $400 per month for 4 kids is insanely low. Fun fact, if she gets a court order, he'll end up paying more like $4,000 a month, and he'll have to pay her retroactively, so he'll end up owing a lot of money, which will be put into a payment plan and come straight from his paycheck each month. OP, your ex is a controlling jerk. He knows he's taking advantage of you financially, and the fact he called you over takeout? Completely ridiculous. Sorry, but I'm not agreeing with everyone else here. I think you are the jerk. Do you buy your kids takeout just for them and nothing for you? Of course not. You're talking about kids, for goodness sake. They like to have treats too. It's one thing to have a candy bar or maybe some other snack you enjoy after your kids go to bed, but to order out and hide it from them? That's selfish. You're the one who decided to have kids, so don't treat them like they're unworthy of what you think you're worthy of. You're the jerk. Selfish and stingy. You could have just waited till they were actually gone before ordering if you wanted to be so selfish. Who orders food for just themselves and leaves their kids out? You even sneak the wrappers out, knowing they would be jealous and feel bad. They don't have their own money to spoil themselves. It's your job. When you have kids, you don't get to spoil only yourself. You have other people to think about. You're the jerk. This vote has nothing to do with your ex or child support or anything. This is between you and your kids. You are regularly treating yourself to things your kids would also like to have and hiding it from them. If it was a once in a blue moon, okay, but this seems quite the regular habit. If you DoorDash 3 times for yourself, you could instead use that money for a nice splurge for the whole family. Obviously, the kids were hurt and disappointed. That's on you to deal with now. Whatever your ex says is really irrelevant. If money's really tight, that makes this even harder for them. Focus on a splurge they could share in, or at least confine your treats to when they're at their father's house. If this is a kind of splurge that the kids never ever get, and there aren't hardly any splurges of any kind for them, and now they know you do this for yourself when they are sleeping, seriously, that's painful. My stepdaughter wants nothing to do with me, but demands I pay for her wedding. My wife passed when my sons were 8 and 4 respectively. Since then, I remarried, and my new wife and I have been married for 11 years now. She herself was married before and had a daughter of her own from her own past marriage. Her ex-husband's story is its own saga, but suffice to say he's alive but isn't in their life anymore. When we married, my biological kids were 13 and 9, and my stepdaughter was 12. For 11 years, I tried to make some bridges. I would get her gifts and try to make sure she always got what she wanted. I did everything I could to make her happy. I would drive her to school, be at her extracurriculars. I paid for the nicest private schools for her that I could. Not to mention, I worked day and night so I could give her the lifestyle she deserved. My wife is a housewife, a choice she made after she voluntarily quit her job in marketing. I tried my best and treated her just like my sons, but she continued to hate me. This came to a head specifically when my stepdaughter graduated about 5 years ago. While my eldest son had invited my wife, his stepmom, to his graduation, my stepdaughter refused to invite me. She had 2 tickets, but she only invited her mother. Her grandparents refused as they live in my wife's native country. When I asked why, she said, "You're not my dad, you didn't raise me, and I don't want you in my life." I was heartbroken. I tried very hard for her to like me, but she still hated me. Still, I paid for her college. I paid for both of my sons' colleges as well. Nevertheless, a few months back, she informed my wife that she will be getting married. I only found out when my wife told me. What was even more devastating is that she said she would come home to celebrate, and I bought a cake, balloons, and so much more. Then, last minute, she changed plans. She just told my wife that she should come over to her apartment without my sons and I. I was upset. When I did eventually call to congratulate her, she just tried to end the conversation as quickly as she could. The last thing I had asked was maybe the honor of having a father-daughter dance with her, which she shot down. I said nothing, but then came the bill, and my wife said she needed some money for her wedding. I considered it long and hard, but clearly, as she didn't consider me as her father, I said I would not be paying for her wedding. I told my wife that she had money saved up. It was her choice if she wanted to spend that or not, but I would not be paying for her wedding. She was furious with me. She said she barely had any money saved up, and I was being an awful person. I received calls from all of my wife's family telling me that I should pay, mainly her immediate family, like my father-in-law and brother-in-law. The whole thing has become a mess. It's divided our family, but I'm still holding my ground. Am I the jerk? First edit. I want to be clear. I will absolutely be paying for my son's wedding when it comes. Second edit. I want to also clarify that this is going to be far from a minor financial inconvenience. While I am sufficiently wealthy, it's still not something that will go easy on my bank account. My wife's family is Indian. Her wedding is going to have probably around 400 to 600 people. Third edit. My wife has been an amazing mother to both our boys and our girl. She is a loving wife who runs a phenomenal house. She tried to get her daughter close to me as well, to little consequence. I also do not think that I could be where I am without her, and certainly before her I was nowhere close to where I am in my success. It's also true that my money has always been our money, and she does most of the accounting for the house anyway. If I do this, I would be doing this for her, not my daughter. Moreover, if she really wanted to, she could do it without my approval. More than half the money is in bank accounts with her name on it. If she wanted to, she could. She never has, and I do not think she will. If she does, that will be her choice. And even if she told me she was going to, I do not think I will stop her. Not the jerk. Your stepdaughter said you're not her dad. You're not obligated to pay for her wedding since you are not her dad, even though you tried to support her. Tell them to get the money from her biological dad. That's the very least they can do. At this age, her daughter will never accept you as a father figure, so you can accept that fact and act accordingly. I wonder if the wife's family has ever seen OP as anything more than an ATM. Now that the ATM has refused to dispense any more money, they're furious. How much more is OP supposed to bend over backwards for them? Just say good riddance, OP. You'll be better off without them. Not the jerk. Why on earth would you pay for this? You probably aren't even on the guest list. She's used to using your money. That should have stopped a long time ago, but now is as good a time as any. Not the jerk. Frankly, your wife holds a lot of responsibility as to why your stepdaughter does not respect you. It would appear you're paying for private school and paying for her college is not a good enough reason for your wife to have some very strong conversations with your daughter about respect and what family actually means. Not the jerk. But I need to ask, why did you ask for a father-daughter dance when you know she doesn't feel that way about your relationship? I understand and respect that you tried to treat her as your own and you treated her above and beyond when maybe she didn't deserve it. But do you feel that maybe you overstepped throughout her life and it made her so uncomfortable that she doesn't want a relationship with you? I'm sorry, but you don't owe her money for her wedding when based on past events, you and your sons might not even be invited. Or you'll just be invited as your wife's +1. Looks like I'm in the minority here, but everyone sucks here. If you and your wife had independent finances, that would be one thing. But as you don't, your money is her money. So it's more a question of, am I the jerk for refusing to spend my wife's and my joint money on stepdaughter's wedding? I'm not arguing you should fully fund a massive wedding if not funding something comparable for your biological kids, and certainly only coming up to you after the fact to ask is quite the entitled and jerk thing to do. But it should be the fact remains that your money is not exclusively yours. It's not really her money though, as she doesn't work. OP said his wife could use her personal savings and she got upset. She raised OP's kids while OP earned much of that money. Without that, OP would not have been able to invest time and effort into working on business, so the money is theirs, not his. Am I the jerk for growing frustrated with my partner's weight loss? I'm in my mid-30s, and I've been together with my partner, also in their mid-30s, for many years. My partner's clinically obese and has been for some time, just we were both dumb and didn't think much about it until a couple years ago with a scare. Now I've been charged by his medical people, close-knit, they all talk to each other about his weight loss program, to be his personal trainer, which I'm fine with since I live with him. I just remind him to take walks and weigh himself daily, make sure he doesn't eat anything too terrible. But for a while now, there's been a thing where he refuses to get larger packages of anything from the store that he'll eat too much of, desserts, snacks, etc. even if they're intended only for me. I get the logic behind it, but this has been going on for over a year now. Sometimes I just want a specific flavor of ice cream we both like, but he refuses to get it because he's afraid he'll eat it all. So I blew up at him last night when he asked me what was wrong after a heavy sigh. No harsh words, but I, admittedly, blunt and frustrated because I'm on the spectrum and have a hard time being subtle in controlling tone, I told him that I wish he could just improve his relationship with food. I suggested he needs to find a way to just measure the stuff that he wants to eat, scoops, handfuls, food scale, rather than sitting there eating the whole thing, that he needs to learn self-control. He shot back with how restricting what's in the house is how Alcoholic Anonymous handles problems, which is true. But I told him straight up that I feel that's different, because unlike alcohol, food is necessary. And while a lot of the stuff I'm frustrated with is luxuries and niceties, I haven't had a lot of things like ice cream in months just because he'll proclaim he'll eat it all and we never buy it. I just feel frustrated, like he's not approaching the issue in a healthy way and that restricting it is an easy way versus facing the real problem of learning to have a better relationship with food and being mindful of what and how much you eat. I genuinely had no issue with it at first, since he needed to lose weight. But sometimes it really feels like he does the bare minimum and skates on by, even with all of my reminding and pushing. Not to discredit what he does do, he weighs himself in the morning and he takes walks with a gentle reminder. I love him, I genuinely do, but I'm growing to be in a spot where I might have to separate myself from him before he suffers medical issues and I lose my mind. So, am I the jerk for blowing up at him and immediately critiquing his reasons? Edit. Someone recommended I add that, due to circumstances, I have no access to a vehicle, so shopping by myself isn't really an option. You're the jerk. You should never have agreed to be his personal trainer. I was a personal trainer, but would have never trained my obese husband. I wasn't his mommy. This is so unhealthy. Get him a therapist that specializes in this. Actually, he needs to find a therapist, not you. Seriously, unhealthy dynamic. Not the jerk. He needs to be in control of his weight loss, and frankly, I'm disturbed his medical team are making this your problem. I'm gonna go against the grain and say no jerks here. Yes, you are understandably frustrated by your significant other's issues with food and the resulting limitations. That doesn't make you a jerk, that just makes you a human. Equally, he's realized where his strengths and weaknesses are. His weakness is at not being able to resist those foods when they're easily available, like they are when they're in the pantry. He's realized his strength is in not bringing those foods into the house at all. That's not being a jerk, that's just playing to his strength in an attempt to improve his health. I don't think either of you are being jerks. I think you both need to be able to discuss this without getting angry at each other, because that's the only way you're going to find a solution. So you're going to have to work with him to find a time to have this discussion. When neither of you are annoyed at the other about this, there's probably a compromise that you can both live on. That said, I suspect you're going to need to compromise more than him, and I suspect this because I personally have the same weakness, despite decades of trying to overcome it. It's easy to say, just go to a nutritionist or a therapist, both of which I have done multiple times, and neither of which have worked. I know what works for me, and I've been fortunate enough that my family accommodates me. Good luck. Am I the jerk for putting childproof locks on the stove to stop my adult sister from using it? I, 19 female, live with my stepsister Nicole, who's 20. We live together in a small 2-bedroom apartment whilst we both attend the same college. Our hometown is a small rural area that's about 3-hour drive away. My dad married Nicole's mother around 11 years ago. Nicole and I know each other pretty well and have spent a lot of time together. We haven't always gotten along, which siblings have, but we do consider each other sisters. Anyways, on to the story. So me and Nicole both got sick of dorms and moved in together around 2 months ago. Back at home, Nicole never cooked for herself, not beyond microwave meals anyway. And now that we're both supposed to be living independently, she started cooking. Nicole keeps forgetting to turn off the stove or oven when she finishes with it. At one point, this nearly caused a full-blown fire when she forgot about the stove whilst a paper plate of hers had been left on top of it. I kept gently reminding Nicole to turn off the oven and stove when she's done with it, but she just doesn't seem to listen. I even tried putting sticky notes around the kitchen to try to remind her. Eventually, Nicole got irritated with the reminders and told me I'm treating her like a kid. I said I'm sorry if it came off that way, but she needs to remember. The problem is just kept persisting, and a near miss with a fire happened again when Nicole forgot about the stove and she didn't hear the smoke detector because she was blasting music on her AirPods. Luckily, I noticed it and I was able to put it out. I tried to have a talk with Nicole and told her that this needs to stop. Nicole just got mad before I could even suggest anything and told me to get off her case. She said I'm overreacting and that she can handle it. She refused to listen to anything I had to say and kept talking over me. This has started to make me really anxious, especially when Nicole is home while I'm out. I bought some plastic child locks for the knobs that control the stove and oven, and I placed them on there. I know Nicole can't open childproof stuff. How old is she? This way, she can't use the stove or the oven when I'm out of the home. When I'm home, I can make sure nothing bad happens. Me and Nicole have similar class schedules, so this shouldn't inconvenience her too much. Nicole went ape crazy when she saw them. She started screaming at me and told me I'm a control freak and that I'm a bully. I yelled back at her and told her I wouldn't be doing this if she could act like a responsible adult. She called me a jerk and said I have no business controlling when she gets to cook. She's now gone to a friend's place and has blocked my phone number. My dad and stepmother got concerned after getting texts from Nicole, and they keep messaging me about it, telling me that I need to get Nicole to come back. Am I the jerk? Dude, she's 20 years old and literally childproofing your oven works? My buddy tried to childproof their refrigerator to stop their 9-year-old from getting into it, and it took her about 15 minutes to sort it out and get into it anyway. Oh right, you're not the jerk in the slightest. Left unchecked, your stepsister is seriously fixing to burn the place down and seriously doesn't seem to be bothered by that fact. Not cool at all. Not the jerk. You're treating her like a kid because she's acting as irresponsible as one. This isn't a little issue like leaving lights on or forgetting some house rule like keeping the bathroom door closed. This is literally a safety issue. She's too irresponsible to be using a stove. If she wants to be treated like a normal adult who's free to cook whenever she wants, then she needs to get her act together. Am I the jerk for selling the house my brother and his family live in? A few years ago, my brother needed help. I let him move into one of my rental properties and we did it all legal, lease agreement and everything. Because I was renting to him at a break-even point, we agreed that he was responsible for all the maintenance of the house and the yard. Well, he has 4 kids, and the hot water tank isn't enough for his family, and he wants a new one. I told him to go ahead. He then proceeded to take the cost of the hot water tank and installation off of that month's rent. I reminded him of our agreement. He said he wasn't making improvements to my property for free. I said that the old hot water tank was fine, and he made the decision to replace it. Big argument, and I didn't want to fight, so I said that he was not allowed to make any further changes to the house without my explicit agreement. So he stopped doing maintenance as a protest. The house itself is not pretty, but it is solid. It's old, and the wiring in it was not meant for all of the modern electronics that we have. He wanted to add a new breaker box and run more outlets. I said no thanks. I can't afford that since I'm not making any money on the house. He started getting a bad attitude about it, and the rent started getting paid late. I tried talking to him, but he said that he had to buy some stuff for the house and he was low on cash. So I sold the house. While the house itself isn't great, it is in an older part of the city, and the property itself is on a 1/4 of an acre. Every time a house sells in the neighborhood, it's snapped up by developers and turned into multi-family units, or one guy built a McMansion on his land. I know a lot of the developers, and I didn't even need to list the house to have it sold in less than a week. My brother found out when he was served with an eviction notice. He called me to ask me what was going on, so I told him that the house was causing me headaches and I had an opportunity to make some money, and I took it. He said I should have offered him a chance to buy it. I said that he was having trouble making rent. How was he going to qualify for a mortgage? He said I'm a jerk and that he has the money. He was waiting to make me an offer. I asked him if he had money, why was he late on the rent? He started bad-mouthing me to all of our family. A few of them took his side and tried to say I was being a jerk, so I offered all of them a chance to clear his debt to me if they wanted to share their opinion. None of them took me up on the offer. My parents are on my side, and they said I shouldn't have rented to him in the first place. I feel bad for my sister-in-law and for the kids, but I'm not going to spend the rest of my life subsidizing his. You're the jerk. Not for selling the house, but for not even giving him a heads up. You're the jerk. An unbelievably petty and greedy one. On top of the baseline level of greed that it takes to be a landlord, you're avaricious and petty to boot. Your brother was paying your mortgage, paying your property taxes, growing your equity in a property. Instead of simply coming to an agreement with your brother about the water heater, you sell the home he lives in with his kids out from under him and smugly sneer at him about your wealth when he confronts you about it by saying, "How are you going to qualify for a mortgage? You're such a petty coward. You don't even have the guts to tell him. You sent an eviction notice." Am I the jerk for reacting badly to my fiance's unexpected pregnancy? I'm male, 31. My fiance, female, 32, and I have been together for 7 years. We got engaged last December. When we were still getting to know each other, she told me that she was infertile. At the time, she didn't give me a lot of info about it because we had only been dating for 5 to 6 months. She told me that she felt like I needed to know in case it was a deal breaker for me. I assured her that it was fine and that we didn't have to worry about that for now, and that if we wanted to have kids later on, there's different methods. As time went on, she confessed to me that the reason why she couldn't have babies was because she had done something that had messed up her reproductive system. I made sure that she knew how much I loved her because she was kind of ashamed of it, although it's not really her fault. She was in therapy for this. The doctors basically told her that it'll be impossible for her to get pregnant. We talked about our future and we decided to adopt kids when we were ready to be parents. We now decided that we were ready for marriage and then we would start trying to adopt. Recently, she's been feeling sick. It's not unusual though, as she has a celiac disease and sometimes food gets contaminated. We're very careful with it, but sometimes it still happens. She was sick for a couple days until she decided to go to the hospital. When she came back, she told me she was fine. Nothing seemed weird. We live near the beach, so yesterday she told me she wanted to have a picnic there. She told me that she'll get everything done. So, a while before the sun sets, we walked down to the beach. She had prepared some sandwiches that we ate. We also had some fruit and drank some juice, etc. At some point, she tells me that she has a surprise for me and to close my eyes. I do, and she puts a piece of paper in my hand and tells me to open them again. It's an ultrasound. Not gonna lie, my first thought was, what is this? Then I figured it out. She was expecting me to say something, so I asked her whose baby it is. She told me that it was ours. This is where I might be the jerk. I laughed and said, "No, really, whose baby is it?" She insisted it was ours, and I told her, "You stole this from Google, didn't you?" Because I thought she was trying to prank me. She then said that it wasn't a prank, but that I had already messed up her good humor. She got angry and started to walk back home. I followed her and asked her if it was true. She said yes. I got very happy and hugged her, which I think made her a bit less angry. We picked up our stuff and got back home. She told me that the doctors can't explain her pregnancy either. She has to do some tests, so we still haven't told anyone, but she wanted me to know. I feel very sad and like a jerk because she was just too excited and had planned a surprise for me, but I messed it up. No jerks here. I think this is a reasonable response to being told you're going to be a father by someone that told you they were infertile. Being shocked and in disbelief is a thing. No jerks here. I get she was hoping for a different initial reaction, but you were genuinely shocked and confused. I mean, by the second time you asked, you probably should have got the hint. But sometimes it takes our brains a second to comprehend such news. Either way, as soon as you realized it was real, you shared in her excitement. She can be disappointed it took a bit longer to get it, but that doesn't make you a jerk in this situation. My rude Karen neighbor demands I help her with her car problems. I live in a condo/townhome with 4 other neighbors belonging to our condo/property board. We all have our own driveways on the property. When I first moved in, my neighbor, Jane, who doesn't have a car, said we could use her driveway from time to time if needed for making space for snow removal. I have 2 cars. Since the driveways are only 1 lane, one of my cars is always blocked in by the other. One day a few months ago, I wanted to take one of my cars to the car wash because it had been sitting there for quite some time. So I took car number 1 out of my driveway, parked it in her driveway, and then took car number 2 out and went on my way to get the car washed. I thought since she had said it was okay, I would leave car number 1 in her driveway until I got back, rather than putting it back in my driveway and having to move the cars around again when I got back. When I got home, Jane was banging on my door furiously. She told me that if I parked my car in her driveway again, she'd call the police. I was a bit confused because she had said it was okay. I ended up trying to be the bigger person and apologizing. I said I was sorry for the misunderstanding and that I wouldn't use her driveway anymore. After that, she was very unfriendly whenever we had crossed paths, totally ignored me if I'd say hello. Fast forward to now. She has a used car that she purchased. Her battery is not working, and she knocked on my door asking for a boost. She has seen me give a boost to another neighbor not too long ago. She said she was now running late for an appointment and really needed my help. I said, sorry, can't help, and I closed my door without another word. Another neighbor, who knows about Jane threatening to call the police, saw this whole interaction and thought I was a bit harsh and should have just helped Jane and given her a boost. So, am I the jerk? Edit. So, I'm creepily listening and watching through my window. The other guy is helping her out. He got her booster cables ready and just slipped on the ice and fell. He kind of landed right on the fender of her car while trying to save himself from falling, and now there's a dent in it. She's losing her crap and asking him how he's going to fix this. I was starting to feel like the jerk from a lot of the comments, but now I'm kind of glad I didn't help. Edit for clarification. This was the first and last time I had put my car there. Another neighbor who doesn't have a car extended the same offer to us. I am also friends with the previous owners. They said they had always parked one of their cars in her driveway and she had never had a problem. They told me they did this on numerous occasions during the 9 years they lived here. I told them this whole story. They were surprised by her reaction. Also, where I live, snow removal is not us shoveling snow. It's a company that comes by with a big tractor and removes snow. Sometimes we can be waiting several hours for them to come. That's kind of why I didn't think 10 minutes would be a big deal when she had said I could park there while waiting for the snow removal to come, which could have potentially been hours. Not the jerk. The fact that her instinct was to threaten to call the police speaks volumes of her character. You owe her nothing. OP. Exactly, that was a bit much. Disagreements happen. I had my part in it. But threatening to call the police over a misunderstanding that wasn't putting anyone in danger? That's why I was just like, no. Karen gets busted stealing from our store, ends up leaving in handcuffs. I, 22 female, work at a department store in a popular mall, and one of our regular shoppers is a woman who, for the sake of this story, we'll call Karen. Until this all went down, she would come in almost every day, and we all knew her by name. Unfortunately for us, she's far from being the nicest person. In fact, she's quite rude and always complained about everything. She's the typical type of Karen who thinks expired coupons should be honored and will always ask us to check the back for something she wants but can't find on the shelves, even though we're never able to find it in the back. We're really good about keeping all the stock we have on the floor as opposed to leaving it in the back like some places do. One day, Karen came in looking for a specific brand of shampoo that we had run out of. She asked me if we had any in the back, and I checked our inventory system to see if we had any on order. When I told her that we didn't have any in stock, she got upset and literally started yelling at me about how we always run out of things she wants. She even went as far as to suggest that we should order some just for her. I politely told her that we couldn't do that, and I apologized for the inconvenience, but she just stormed off without another word. Another time, Karen came in with a bunch of expired coupons and demanded that we honor them. I tried to explain to her that we couldn't accept them, but she kept insisting and causing a scene. Eventually, my manager had to step in and tell her that we couldn't accept the coupons. Karen was not happy about it and left in a huff, muttering under her breath. With the background out of the way, now on to the main story. One day, when something truly shocking happened, our opinion of this woman went from typical Karen to full-on criminal. We saw all of what I'm about to tell you on our camera footage. So one weekday afternoon when Karen came in, wearing her usual sour expression, she made a beeline for the shoe department and started browsing through them as she usually did. A few minutes later, she grabbed a pair of sneakers from the shelf and walked over to the nearest bench. She sat down and began to take off her old shoes, which she placed neatly in the box and placed it back on the shelf. She then just went about her business and checked out as usual, but wearing the new shoes instead of her old ones. Once we found the box of old shoes on the shelf, Loss Prevention went to work reviewing footage to find out who had done this. It took them a few days, but eventually they found the exact moment that Karen had done the deed. Because she was a regular who honestly spent a fortune with us, Manglement did not want to press charges at first. They were thinking it could have been a mistake and wanted to forget about it. But unfortunately for Karen, she was now on the watch list of our loss prevention officers, who stayed watching her on the cameras anytime they saw her in the store. It was only a matter of time until she tried the same thing again, but this time it didn't work out as well for her. Our loss prevention guy sat there watching her on the live footage as she did the exact same thing again. This time, the officer quickly called for backup and they kept a close eye on Karen's location in the store. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Karen headed for the exit with her old shoes still in the box that she had put back on the shelf and the new shoes on her feet. Our loss prevention team quickly approached her and asked her about the shoes she had just attempted to steal. They showed her the footage of her taking the shoes and informed her that she had been caught on camera stealing. Karen tried to deny it at first, but when they showed her the footage, she finally admitted to the theft, along with some very colorful choices of words. Among her excuses were,
I spend more than 99% of your customers. You can't let me just have a simple pair of shoes as a thank you.
Of course, the police were called, and Karen was held at the store until they arrived. She was arrested and charged with theft, which was a big shock to all of us who knew her as a regular shopper, considering how management loved her so much. After that day, Karen was banned from the store, and we never saw her again. Once she was no longer visiting the store, of course, we all made jokes about her and almost felt bad for her. For her to come to our store about every day and then just stop, we all wondered what she had spent her days doing once she got out of jail. Hopefully, she isn't just moving her shoe operations to another unsuspecting store. My future in-laws are buying my fiancé a house, but won't include my name on it. My fiancé, 27 female, and I, 29 male, grew up very differently. I was an immigrant who moved here when I was 6, and we were definitely struggling a lot. My parents worked extremely hard to provide for me and my siblings, and they always prioritized our education over everything. My dad always told me it was his dream to live in a house that he owned, since we'd always rented, but he couldn't save up enough since we were renting in expensive areas with good schools. Unfortunately, both of my parents passed before being able to realize that dream. My dad passed when I was 17, and my mom passed almost 3 years ago. My fiancé grew up fairly wealthy, like private schools, designer clothes, 3 to 4 international vacations per year, flying first or business class the whole way. I was able to attend college thanks to student loans, scholarships, and part-time jobs, which delayed my graduation a bit, while her parents were able to fairly easily cover all of her expenses themselves. However, I'm the last person to say that my fiancé hasn't earned everything she's gotten. She's an extremely intelligent person, and besides funding her education, her parents are in no way responsible for her accomplishments. My fiancé and I met 6 years ago when we started working at the same company, in the same position at the same time after graduating from college. We hit it off almost immediately, and it didn't take long for us to start dating. Both of us still work at the company. However, I've progressed through the career ladder a bit more quickly than she has, and now I make just over twice what she does. I'll be the first to admit that this is completely undeserved, and I've benefited from a lot of luck, and it definitely wasn't fair to her since we work in a male-dominated field. Still, that has allowed me to aggressively attack my student loans, and once they were paid off, I put that into saving up for a down payment on a house as a way to fulfill my parents' dreams. I proposed about 6 months ago, and things have been going great so far. However, this past weekend, we were at her family's house when her parents told us that for a wedding present, they were going to give us a house. My fiancé was overjoyed, and although I was also happy, I wanted to know the details as well. Pretty quickly, her parents told us that the house would be in her name only, and that they expected us to sign a prenup to protect any, and only, pre-marriage assets, just in case. I was insulted that they thought I was after their money at all, since I make more than she does anyway, and I ended up telling them that they can't call it a wedding present if they only give it to one person. I then told my fiancé I refuse to live in a house that I don't own, and she knows exactly why. All 3 of them got very upset with me. So, am I the jerk? Edit. So I was requested to add some information that I included in the comments into my post, and I also just had a long conversation with my fiancé and my in-laws, so I have a small update to share as well. Here's the info from the comments. The hilarious part of the whole prenup conversation was that they basically said that they expected the prenup to only cover premarital and inherited assets. They said they would absolutely refuse to accept any clauses that include future assets. So if I want to own a home where only my name is on the title, I have to purchase it before the marriage, and also make sure to never use any of my wife's money to pay the mortgage or anything. Apparently, they already had their lawyer write the whole thing up, but wanted to give me a heads up so I can retain my own lawyer to review it. I have a suspicion that any lawyer is going to think it's massively unfair just based on how they're describing it, and I'm assuming that they'll think I'll just get a cheap lawyer because of my upbringing. Admittedly, I don't know any better, so this is kind of difficult for me to determine what's fair and what isn't, but it doesn't seem fair to me. Besides that though, it's also just a personal thing. I want to live in a house that I own, not them, not my wife alone. I'm happy to live in a home that both my wife and I own, but not one that she owns on her own. I don't want someone else living in the house that I own. I want to live in it myself. I also should mention that currently, my fiance and I share our finances. She makes about $120K and I make about $250K. We split things according to income, so I pay around 2/3 and she pays around 1/3. Based on our conversations, my fiance and I both expected this arrangement to continue after marriage. As for the update, well, I'll start with the fiance's older sister, who's 29, calling me out of the blue a few hours ago, telling me that her parents did not ask her husband to sign a prenup before they got married. Both of my fiance's sisters and my fiance's brother-in-laws were at the dinner where her parents talked about the house, so they both heard the whole conversation. My fiance's sister thought I deserved to know. My fiance's brother-in-law comes from a well-off family as well, but I don't know how well-off or whether they're on the same level as my fiance's family or just upper middle class. Their wedding was pretty extravagant. My fiance's family is white and American, as is the brother-in-law. I am Pakistani. I don't believe her parents think less of me for this, but it seemed like this information was important according to the comments. Anyway, about 3 hours ago, my fiance finally came home. She had stayed at her parents' house because we had gotten into quite the argument. I was expecting her to continue the argument, but she actually came and apologized straight away. Apparently, her younger sister, who's 22, went off on her after I left her parents' house. She really laid into my fiance on how she was being inconsiderate because everyone knew how important owning my home was to me. She also said that her parents weren't treating me right or equally. That made my fiance see my side, as she said, but she was too embarrassed, which is why she didn't come home last night. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of my fiance's sister right now. She's never been one for nonsense, while my fiance is a bit of a people pleaser and definitely a daddy's girl, and she's kind of always hoping for her father's approval. My fiance has even said she knows that she needs to work through that before we get married. I'm going to buy her sister a cupcake. Then showed her the post, and she got pretty uncomfortable reading a lot of the comments, especially the ones saying that she doesn't care about me. She also got really uncomfortable when she read the comments about her parents. I explained to her how I was feeling like I was going into this as an unequal partner, and she absolutely agreed that it wasn't fair. She even said she was going to tell her parents that she was going to refuse to sign the prenup. I told her to slow down because she was going between extremes. I told her that we still needed to get the prenup because her family was already having difficulty accepting me and this was going to make it worse. However, I told her that under no circumstances was I signing anything her parents had a part in drafting and that we would each retain our own lawyers outside of her parents' influence and get something that is fair and equitable. She agreed. We then talked about the house and she said she was going to tell her parents that she wasn't going to accept unless both of our names were on it. I told her to slow down again, and I got her to agree to me paying for a quarter of it. My initial proposal was to pay half, but she said that what I said about it being a wedding present, so it should be for both of us, was true. So we came to the agreement that we would each get half ownership of the house, with her parents paying for 75% of it and me using the money I've saved, plus a small mortgage for the other 25%. Both of our names will be on the title. We then called her parents together and told them our plan. They grumbled about it a bit initially, especially because her dad was still upset that I had been so ungrateful. But eventually, we were able to talk it through, and they agreed to the plan. I doubt this is the last I hear about this, but at least for now, it seems like the situation is mostly resolved. Not the jerk. Honestly, I don't think they're terrible for wanting to give a nice gift, but also ensure their investment goes to her in the event of a divorce. In addition, I'm sure prenups are much more common and less offensive in their world. That said, you've been dating for 6 years. They know you. They presumably know your background, home ownership goals, etc. Also, a potential solution or suggestion, between the two of you, own 2 homes, plus get some sweet Airbnb income on one of them. You will have a much easier time saving up for the second while living in the first. ETA, just make sure your home is covered in the prenup too. Not the jerk. I wouldn't live in a house that was just owned by my wife and vice versa, and I 100% have a real-world example. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and when we bought our house, she had no income and the bank wanted to leave her off the mortgage. I 100% refused and even paid a smaller interest rate increase to make sure she knew it was both of ours home and not just mine. She was pretty quiet about it. My wife is a quiet person, but later broke down crying about how much it made her feel like an equal in our marriage, and that I did so without her saying a word. Stick to your guns. Either it's a gift for both of you under both your names, or just buy your own house and fulfill that lifelong dream. No jerks here. Leaning towards you're the jerk. You're being short-sighted, dumb, and prideful. You know what can happen when you don't have rent or a mortgage? Your savings shoot up ridiculously fast. They very quickly become a down payment for when you want to buy property. People with money know how to protect financial assets. If you love your fiancé, nothing changes when you sign the prenup. You're standing in your own way of being insulted. They're giving you a house to live in. Get your head out of your backside and see how much of a leg up that gives you as well. Your parents wanted a better life for you and worked extremely hard. Probably took low-paying jobs to provide for your family because they did not let their pride come first. You're the jerk. Her parents are gifting her a house for her wedding. If you have no desire to take what is hers premaritally, you should have no issue signing a prenup. You should want her to be protected if you love her as much as you say you do. Refusing to live in the house unless they put your name on it shows what you're really about. Not sorry. You're the jerk. When I pass, I'll leave my house to my kid, not my kid and his spouse. I don't plan on him ending up homeless if he picks the wrong partner. Slight you're the jerk. Don't let the idea of a prenup get you all mad. If you two don't get divorced, it won't even matter. And if you do get divorced, then why should you get to keep 50% of this house's financial value anyway? Get your own lawyer. You can afford that now, right? Make sure the prenup is fair and limited in scope, then sign it and move on. This is a gift with very few strings attached. Take advantage of it and save your money for other things for your new family. The house will be yours, together in spirit. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his in-laws? Please let us know.
Oh, how I can't stand rich people using things like prenups to protect their investments in case of a divorce. People don't even get divorced these days, and on the rare occasion that they do, it's not like they fight over money or anything like that.
She's being facetious in case anyone can't tell. Am I the jerk for deliberately embarrassing my father-in-law in front of his family? I, male 36, am absolutely not what you would call a handy kind of guy. I can build an IKEA flat pack and I can follow a YouTube tutorial on how to declog my washing machine, but I don't have any, what my father-in-law, male 60, would call worthwhile skills. I have to give him the credit that he's due and say he's very knowledgeable about plumbing, joinery, and electrics. He has often helped me and my wife with matters in our home, leaky pipe, some plastering work, etc., and we've always been grateful and appreciative of his efforts. My skills are more IT-based. I work in this field for a living, which means I often get saddled with the old chestnuts such as, "Can you fix the printer?" or "The internet isn't working." To me, these are simple issues to fix, but he's very IT illiterate. I never make a big deal about this because it's the least I can do to repay for his help. However, he spares no opportunity whatsoever to take shots at my lack of worthwhile skills. He'll say, often in front of family and friends, that I'm not a real man or that I'd be useless in an emergency, that sort of thing. Because he does a lot of stuff that I generally suck at, I bite my tongue and I don't say anything to him. This week changed that. We bought my daughter this massive climbing frame and swing set for her birthday. My wife and I were able to assemble most of it, but the last few bits, as well as anchoring it into the ground, were giving us issues. My brother happened to stop by to visit, so he helped, but my wife also called father-in-law to come and help. We got the job done, but again, the commentary continued, which was especially insulting considering my brother was here. Yesterday, we were out visiting him. I was there, as was my wife, his wife, and my wife's brother and his wife. He asked me if I could take a look at his laptop, as he'd had some sort of a virus. When I fired it up, it was one of those ransomware programs. Camera was showing the webcam feed on a fake police website. I was able to get his computer somewhat back to normal after a while, which took longer than he would have liked according to his comments. While I was bringing it back, he kept badgering me about what had caused the virus. Looking through his internet history revealed that he had been looking at a lot of stuff that he wouldn't want anyone to know about. It was out of my mouth before I had even finished processing the thought. Loads of these websites that you've been looking at have given you viruses and dodgy stuff. I'll get you a membership for my Norton account. You could have cut the tension with a knife. His wife looked super angry and sister-in-law stifled a laugh. We left shortly after that, but on the way out, we heard the two of them arguing. My wife gave me both barrels in the car, but I said he's always giving me hassle, and I keep my mouth shut. Things have been frosty ever since, and I wonder if I went too far. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but your wife and her dad are. If someone in my family was speaking to my husband like that, I would have shut that crap down immediately. They can treat you with respect, or they can buzz off. You and your wife need to have a talk, then establish boundaries with her parents. I seriously can't stop laughing. Well, Dad, what did we learn today? He asked, he badgered you to tell him what caused the problem. You did so. Could you have done it better? Yeah. You could have offered to teach him how to clean his browser history. But did you do anything wrong? Not a bit. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Am I the jerk for asking for a tip back at a restaurant? This one's been keeping me up all night. I, 24 female, and my boyfriend, 24 male, like most people, appreciate a good bubble tea. A week ago, we went out and grabbed lunch and tea at a bubble tea place in our town. The restaurant is not a full-service restaurant, but it is one of those places where you order at the front and they yell out your number when it's ready. I always thought the rule was that you tip in sit-down restaurants where you're being served, but not in places where you grab something at the counter, unless you leave a little change for a tip jar. In sit-down restaurants, I'm a stickler for always tipping at least 20%. So we ordered, and the woman behind the register told us the total, about $35 for 2 meals and drinks, a bit of a special splurge for us student loanees. I put my credit card into the card reader, and then took my hands off and waited for the usual directions to pop up again, without touching the screen. They all came up, as usual, 15%, 20%, 22, or 25. But then, before I could click skip or touch the machine at all, the button for 20% lit up orange and automatically charged me a $7 service tip. The woman at the register immediately printed and handed me the receipt for $42. Flustered, and in the heat of the moment, I awkwardly explained that the price was wrong, that I hadn't selected the tip, and that the machine had randomly added it on. The woman behind the register looked at me with a blank stare and said, "So, do you want me to take off the tip?" I said yes, please. The woman had to call over a manager who also gave me a blank stare and confirmed that I wanted a refund for my tip. As they were printing off a special receipt in silence, I wanted to melt into a puddle on the floor. The manager handed me the tip refund receipt without saying anything, and I said an awkward, "Thanks," before scurrying off to the side to wait for the food. As we waited, my boyfriend made a joke about hoping the staff didn't do anything gross to our food after what had just happened. I asked him if what I had done was horribly awkward, and he said, "Well, yeah, I wouldn't have asked for the tip back." I told my family about what I did, and my dad disagreed. He said the card reader was clearly broken or rigged, and wondered if the rigging could have been intentional. My mom thinks that's unlikely. My sister said that next time, you should just pay the $7. It's not worth it. Honestly, I agree with my sister at this point. I'd absolutely pay the extra $7 just to avoid that incredibly awkward situation. But I have to ask Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk for asking for the tip back, because that sounds like some shady stuff. However, you should really be planning to tip at least 15% on takeout orders at any establishment. Why? Because the owner is offsetting their labor costs with your tips. The only reason your order isn't more expensive is because they're expecting you to subsidize their employees' wages. And for any of those "I reject tipping culture" people, yeah, it's awful, but you're not changing the culture by not tipping, you're just passing the hit onto the person making $2.13 an hour. You're the jerk. In case you're wondering, they totally did stuff to your food. I've worked in the restaurant industry for almost 10 years, and everywhere I've ever worked, if we had someone pull some crap like this, you don't even want to know what we would have done to their food. If you can afford to go out to eat, you can afford to tip, takeout or not. If you seriously can't afford a $7 tip, just stick to Dollar General hot dogs. You're the jerk. Something tells me you've never worked in the food industry before. It's always the people who have never worked in the industry that feel entitled to great service but refuse to leave a tip. Takeout still requires so much to go on behind the scenes in order for you to get your food. The least you could do is leave a small tip for the people who work there. I guarantee you that everyone working there that day talked about you for the rest of their shift. I know I would have. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for asking for the tip refunded or not? Please let us know.
After reading so many stories similar to this one, I kind of just avoid restaurants like the plague.
Business class upgrade if there is room. I used to work at a regional airline. The jet we used for our flight to the big city had 6 business class seats. The business class service was really good for a 2-hour flight. It included a full bar service, a hot meal, warmed bread basket, followed by a trolley with dessert and signature coffee. The good old days. One of our regular travels was a local business owner who was just a slimy businessman. He had a reputation for making a lot of money from some pretty shady deals over the years. We would roll our eyes when we saw him coming to the check-in counter because he would always name drop and ask for special treatment. He always used the business class check-in line even though he was usually in economy. He didn't have frequent flyer status, but he was buddies with one of the airline executives and always let us know this fact when he checked in by making sure to tell us that he was good friends with Vice President Karen. He would always ask for free upgrades, extra baggage, not charging a change fee, last-minute discounts, etc. If he didn't get what he wanted, he immediately called VP Karen, who would usually then call us and approve whatever it was that he wanted. So one day, Jerk checks in for his flight to the big city and of course name drops and asks for a free upgrade to business class because I'm friends with VP Karen and they said it would be okay. He was traveling on a discounted ticket that was not eligible for upgrade, even if he did have an upgrade coupon, which he didn't. I informed him that he was not eligible for any upgrades on this ticket and gave him his boarding pass and sent him on his way. Of course, he flips open his cell phone and immediately calls VP Karen. Within 2 minutes, the phone at the check-in desk rings and it's VP Karen authorizing me to override the policy to upgrade Jerk to business class with no upgrade coupon required, if there's room. The flight that day wasn't that busy, and only one person booked in business class, leaving 5 open seats. I was really irritated, but I begrudgingly put Jerk on the upgrade list anyways. He returned to the check-in counter and picked up his standby boarding card and gave me that smug, told you so, look. But then what VP Karen said clicked with me, if there's room. The next passenger I checked in was a super nice lady, big smile, friendly, please and thank you. Oh, thank you so much for checking my bags to my connecting flight. That's so nice of you. I was taking my time and we were chatting a bit since it wasn't that busy. She was a teacher going on a trip to see her family and it was her first visit with them in over a year and was going to meet her new nephew for the first time. She was overjoyed just to have the time off to travel. I typed in a few things into the computer to make it look like I was checking something about her connecting flights and then said, "Oh, you've been selected today to receive a free upgrade to business class." She was shocked. I've never flown business class in my life. This is so amazing. At that time, we were rarely questioned if we upgraded someone without a certificate. Over the next 20 minutes, I found excuses to upgrade 4 other passengers. One who worked for one of our top corporate accounts, one who was legitimately a frequent flyer, can't remember the other reasons. But by the time I went to board the flight, I had to tell Jerk that I was sorry, but business class was full and I couldn't offer him an upgrade today. The teacher I upgraded profusely thanked me again when she boarded with the rest of the business class passengers. Little did she know that it really made my day also. My fiance let my snake loose outside, so I kicked her out. I, 27 male, have always been an animal lover. I love snakes, tarantulas, scorpions, lizards, geckos, dogs, and cats. When I moved out of my parents' house and into my townhome, I decided to adopt a ball python. She is very docile and loves to be held. I set her tank up in one of the rooms downstairs. When my fiance, 28 female, and I decided that we were ready to move in together, I slowly introduced her to the snake. She thought the snake was really cool and even held her a few times. A few months ago, her friends came over, and ever since, she's been asking me to find a new home for the snake. I had to travel to another state for work and trusted her to take care of the snake. I was gone for a week, and when I came back, I saw the tank completely gone. I searched all over the house, and it was nowhere to be found. I went outside and checked the wooded area behind the townhome and found the tank. The tank was open and no sign of the snake. When my fiance got home, I showed her the tank and told her to go pack a suitcase and to find another place to stay. Her defense was that I was giving the snake too much attention. Fiance is currently staying with her parents, and they think that I'm overreacting over an animal. Fiance is upset that I won't talk to her or accept her apology. Am I the jerk for kicking my fiance out of the house for letting my snake loose outside? It's illegal to turn animals loose like that in the wild. Not the jerk. Your fiance is messed up. Agreed. The snake very well might not live due to the fact that it's used to being a pet and not used to being outside. This would be like letting a dog run free. OP should break off the engagement. I almost always consider this sub's recommendations to end marriages, break off engagements, go no contact, etc. to be heavy-handed. But this one is messed up on so many levels. The casual animal mistreatment, the fact that she did this to something she knew you love, the jealousy towards a pet, the secret betrayal, and not to mention her family backing her up that all of this is no big deal. OP, your life will be horrible if you marry this messed up person and her messed up family, not the jerk. I think a lot of the breakup recommendations are good, to be honest. My perspective is, if it comes to the point where they are asking anonymous strangers for their opinions about relationships, then there's probably a lot more issues going on too, meaning the relationship probably won't last. Am I the jerk for serving my brother-in-law's dinner using toy utensils? I, male 17, moved in with my sister after my parents kicked me out. Another story. They said I'll have to temporarily stay here until I get back to normal, which I don't think I will. But anyways, so I moved in with my sister and her husband about a month ago. FYI, she does everything around the house. I started helping here and there, as well as looking after a 2-year-old niece, and now she's 6 months pregnant. Brother-in-law does nothing because he's the breadwinner, as he claims, but in my opinion, he's taken it a bit too far. Example, he'd tell her to start his laundry once he takes it off, put dinner on the table once he's home, get the shower ready, and so on. They fight a lot because my sister is exhausted and burnt out. I usually put my headphones on and mind my own business, but 2 nights ago there was a lot of commotion once he came home, so I went to see what the issue was. Turns out, brother-in-law was complaining about dinner and my sister was too exhausted to get up. I mean, the dinner was already cooked, but he wanted her to put it on a plate for him on the table. I told my sister I'd do it, but instead of using their kitchen utensils, I used my niece's toy utensils, like a toy cup, toy plate, toy fork, and a tiny napkin. And I put the food on the toy plate and the drink in the cup while brother-in-law was in the shower. He then came into the kitchen and sat down and stared at the plate for a few seconds. He then looked at me and asked what the heck this was and whether I was joking. I told him if he wanted to act like a helpless child, then he might as well get treated like one. He began yelling and my sister came inside. He then threw the napkin and stormed off upon saying that I disrespected him and that he'll let my parents know about what I did. My sister saw what I had done and started laughing. I went into my room, but the argument didn't stop. Now he's expecting an apology from me for meddling in his marriage and pulling this crappy stunt on him. I could be the jerk for this, but I was just so mad for my sister and also sick and tired of being sick and tired of the nightly fighting over dinner. Okay, so this is really funny, and he totally had it coming, but we all know you should have stayed way out of this. I get that you were trying to stick up for your sister. Who deserves that? Please accept my softest, everyone sucks here. You might have actually made them fight more. People like your brother-in-law often take these things out on people like your sister. Yeah, I mean, I agree that while it was definitely well-deserved, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. For OP, since he needs to make sure he still has a place to live, and for the sister for the reasons you said. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.